check through the settings of this.
Oh, we did right over the beach. This building there. I keep thinking they're there. What?
Okay.
One more, sorry. I like it.
Yeah. I'm like. I don't think I ever.
Well, I wish when they had.
Yeah.
All right, I will call to order the regular board meeting for the Central Oregon Community College Board of Directors for June 11th, 2025. And I would like to start with our native lands acknowledgement. COCC would like to acknowledge that the beautiful land our campuses reside on are the original homes of the Wasco and the Warm Springs people. They ceded this land to the US government in the Treaty of 1855. The Paiute people were forcibly moved to the Warm Springs Indian Reservation starting in 1879. It's also important to note that the Klamath Trail ran north through this region to the Great Celilo Falls trading grounds. Descendants of these original people are thriving members of our communities today. We acknowledge and thank the original stewards of this land. May we please have a roll call?
Yes, you may. Laura Kraska Cooper.
Here.
Erica Scapel.
Here.
Joe Prinowitz.
Yes.
Alan Unker. Here. Aaron Burrs.
Here.
Aaron Footmorgan.
Here.
David Porter. Here. Lori Chesley.
Here.
Zach Boone. Here. Laura Bomi.
Here.
Alicia Moore.
Here.
Anne Marie Hamlin.
Here.
Michael Lalonde. Here. Lindsay Luca-Purdy. Thomas Risley. Present. Anna Evanson. And I think there's maybe a couple other folks that I don't think I got the list, but. Susie Christensen.
Here.
John Devlin. John Berry. Yeah, Paul Taylor. Here. Kyle Matthews. Here. And I believe Kathleen Bennington might be coming online too. Later. She is. She's there. But she is. Oh, perfect. Wow.
Here. Thanks.
It's like I called you and you just popped up. Luke Sulberg here. Kyle, I'm not sure about. Did I say your name?
Yes.
Kyle Matthews. Okay, perfect. All right.
Do we have anybody in here who hasn't been announced or introduced? We'd love to.
Yeah, we have Neil Weiss. He's our ASCC Director of Funds.
Thank you. All right, are there any agenda changes for this evening? I don't have any. No one else? Okay, cool. I believe we do have some public comment.
We do have some other comment. Sarah Henson from our faculty is gonna kick it off and then maybe additional comment as well.
And Sarah, I understand, thank you for letting us know that you had several letters that came from faculty members. And so I understand that for the whole board, this is on the Deer Ridge operations. And Sarah's gonna read her letter, I think, and then kind of summarize the others. We all have copies of the letters that were received before Lucas left. And there's one more that he's received, which he will send to us electronically. So we'll have all of the letters. I'll copy that letter.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll follow up too, but if anyone wants to, I'll just set it here and folks can kind of read or pass around it.
And Michael Cooper is also here who would like to speak to this issue. So, yeah. So I just want to give you a little bit of context for why faculty are writing to you and what they're asking. Summarize some of the salient points in the letters and just read a few excerpts from, I'm actually going to read from Carrie Walker's letter because I think it really hits some of the key points. So as some of you may know, we started offering an AAOT program at Deer Ridge Correctional Institution last year. We have previously for many years offered a welding program there that provides workforce development and the welding certification program to inmates at Deer Ridge. When the program was designed, it was initially designed to be a two-cohort program to allow students to expeditiously move through the process and reach completion. This term, the folks involved in running that program were notified that the administration has made a decision not to proceed with a second cohort. Due to concerns about not wanting to get too far ahead of ourselves, concerns about potential changes in federal funding, and concerns about our commitment to the Mather's campus. And so that's why the faculty are reaching out and encouraging you to support our program in Deer Ridge. We understand that the role of the board is not necessarily to reach in and change granular decisions, but rather to prioritize and provide vision to the college and our mission, and to provide feedback to the president. So we are writing to let you know of the importance, the mission saliency of what we're doing at Deer Ridge, how important it is to our students there, our communities, the mission of the college, workforce development, public safety, and to encourage you to support that program and to provide feedback to the president that you support a second cohort. So with that in mind, the letters came from faculty members Josh Evans, Sean Roberts, Sarah Barron, Carrie Walker, Jackie Curry, who's a staff member, myself, and Michael Kukulis. I just want to read a few points from Carrie's letter. She says, while I understand the college cannot say yes to every good idea, the AAOT program is more than just a good idea. It's a proven, successful program. We have a full year of data showing student success, decades of evidence from the welding program, and an overwhelming national research that demonstrates the effectiveness of prison education on reducing recidivism. Currently, there are 25 full-time students at Deer Ridge and a clear plan to grow. When compared with full-time enrollment at our Madras and Prineville campuses, the lack of support for Deer Ridge is difficult to understand. Courses are already scheduled, classrooms are ready, faculty are eager. I'm proud to teach at Deer Ridge, and it has deepened my connection to our community. Starting there, I've learned how many people in Central Oregon have personal ties to the institution, neighbors, friends, and students alike. Being denied the chance to continue this work makes me question why we are holding back resources from students to embody our mission of equitable, accessible instruction. On behalf of these students and many more, I ask your support a second AAOT cohort. Adding a second cohort is an efficient, affordable way for COCC to fulfill the mission empowering students, supporting the workforce, and serving our most vulnerable community members. I've also noticed an increase in Deer Ridge students from Central Oregon, where we live and work. As we invest in Deer Ridge, we are investing in the safety of our own communities. I recognize that the uncertainty around federal funding, but that is not a reason to retreat, it's a reason to lead. At a time when many social services are losing ground, COCC can and should be a model of what's possible. So I encourage you to read all of the letters. There's personal testimonies who have taught at Deer Ridge. And I encourage you to make your voices heard to our president and to support our students and programming at Deer Ridge. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Sarah. Hi.
I'm a little nervous, sorry. I'm Michael Klinker-Hughes, I'm the Network Services Manager, which might be a little confusing as to why I'm speaking about this. My previous life is, I'm from Minnesota. I think I saw you guys a couple of weekends ago. I worked for the Minnesota Department of Corrections for 13 and a half years. 7 of those years, I was a vocational educator, where I was teaching inmates basic computer skills, several different programs, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, how to use Microsoft Word, how to make cables. So right up my alley, being the network administrator here. Teaching for those 7 years, I have a very long list of success stories of reduced recidivism rates. As far as what we're actually doing in Deer Ridge, I just wanted to be here to speak about. I have seen that this works. These people come back into our communities, and I literally have friends on my Facebook that I was a teacher to, and now they're married. They own businesses, they're employing others, they have families. And I remember one guy in particular, when I had him sit down to the computer for the first time, he hit the mouse and he laughed because he couldn't believe it moved on the screen. He had never seen that before. Think about that when these people are coming out of prison and have never seen a computer before. That immediately sets them back. So I just wanted to come and say, I know this works. I know this reduces recidivism. And it's one of the very few passions where I'm actually getting out of my shell, and I ran over here to speak up in front of everyone. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you both for coming from Bend, with us. We appreciate that. I sometimes feel like people in Bend don't necessarily know the road goes both ways. Liz, do you have any others?
I think that's it.
All right, so moving on to information items, we have, oh yes, this was something we've been anticipating. We are gonna get an update from the ASCOCC.
Everyone, thanks for having us. My name is Lindsay Booth-Burney, and I'm the Assistant Director of Student Life at COCC. And part of my role is advising our student government. And we have a few folks with us tonight that will be sharing some of the highlights of this year. It was a really awesome year. We had a really engaged council. So we have Thomas Risley, who I think some of you have met before, our president. We have Neil Weiss, our Director of Student Affairs, and Hannah Evenson, the Director of Campus Affairs. So I will turn it over to Thomas.
Good evening, everyone. Chair Cooper, thank you. Members of the board, thank you for the invitation, and I appreciate your time this evening. I want to start by making sure that my team is properly recognized for the dedicated work they've done on behalf of the student body. Sadly, most of them weren't able to attend tonight's meeting, but I am joined by Hannah Evenson and Neil Weiss. Other members of the councils, Reagan Salinas, Talia Stockwell, and Elliot Wood weren't able to be here, but we're good. I'd also like to give a shout out to some of our members who couldn't complete their terms, but nonetheless, they made a notable contribution to ASCOCC. These individuals are Benny Garcia, Betsy Green, and Anna Robinson. Lindsay, our staff advisor, also deserves recognition for her consistent support of this council and its members. And so does Andrew Davis, who helped preserve the flood of my sanity while Lindsay was out on maternity leave. As a team, we accomplished a lot this year in collaboration with students, departments, and staff across campuses. A few of these events include Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, Bobcat Orientation, Welcome Week, Stress-Free Finals, and we even sponsored some of our own events like a trivia night and most notably the Student Club Mixer in May. I'd be remiss not to mention the Thanksgiving food drive, which allowed us to provide holiday meals to nearly 150 students across Central Oregon. We also helped provide funding for the Early Learning Conference hosted by the local chapter of the Oregon Association for the Education of Young Children. 62 students attended, and we hope that there will be 62 more child care professionals fulfilling our critical need for working families in this region. As a result of my team's hard work, our profile of the student body has greatly improved over the years. And I am pleased to say that this year has been productive in laying a foundation for a more meaningful and supportive relationship that ASCOCC has with students. As a service provider for students, our most significant tool is the student food pantry. Most students who visit the ASCOCC office come in because they know that we are dedicated to fighting hunger on our campuses. We spent just over $52,000 to supply food and hygiene products. $38,214 was spent at beds, and $13,835 was spent at students. Rich campuses. In total, we acquired and distributed over 20,000 pounds of food at that campus alone. ASCOCC, however, didn't do this alone. Funding for the food bank is roughly divided into 3 parts. ASCOCC puts about a third of the bill, and the other 2/3 are split between state and local grants. Circling back to student engagement, I'm excited to announce that we added numerous new clubs to our roster this year.
Actually, let me jump in, so I'm supposed to take a look at that slide and just some of the pounds of food, households that are students served. It's really impressive work that started out as a very, very small project. 4 years ago, maybe 5 at the very most. It's really grown to that, this year's student government has just done a fabulous job in really sharing.
Thank you, Alicia. Right now, we have about 21 active clubs. When the college shut down over the 2019-2020 academic year, we had 16. 2 prospective clubs are finalizing their paperwork to be established as we end the academic year. We held our first club mixer in May, which provides a space for clubs to come together, socialize, and play games. This was an ASCOCC sponsored activity. What this illustrates is a significant improvement in student outreach. It also bodes well for tightening tight-knit community of staff and students that ASCOCC has been create. Before wrapping up student engagement, I'd also like to report that we had a fairly productive Get Up Vote campaign in 2024. We partnered with the League of Women Voters in the spring and had a themed tabling event to encourage registration and voting. The outcome is nearly 350 conversations with staff and students, and most of the people we contacted indicated that they would or will strongly consider voting. Looking back at what ASCOCC has accomplished this year, one of the things that I think I'm most proud of is that my team's efforts to provide a welcoming space to students home, ASCOCC being awarded Karen Roth Diversity Achievement Award. Not to get too philosophical, but I view leadership as being moral just as much as it is functional, and being given this award signifies that our values-based service through our commitment to be inclusive left a meaningful impact on students and collaborators who work with us.
And I'm also going to jump in here. This year's council. It was so much beyond like this is our job to create a welcoming, inclusive space. It was so amazing to see the collaboration and just the welcoming space they created. And I think that really did lead to so much more student engagement and involvement. So just huge kudos to the team. It was really awesome to watch.
Thank you, and that's actually a really good segue into the future. I've used my time in ASCOCC well, and I'm proud that we expanded support and services to students, and I'm proud that this year's council modernized ASCOCC's policies and procedures. I think that I've used my strengths well, and I'm comforted that I set a good example for the council, but I know that my chapter here is finished, and it's time for a new one for ASCOCC. Now is the time for ASCOCC to continue bringing people together, building bridges, and creating community. With this goal in mind, I have unwavering confidence that Talia Stockwell, our ASCOCC president-elect, is the right person for this job. Not only do they have an aptitude for governance, but they also keenly understand that community is created through relationships with one another, not through rules and policies. It is a unique talent that I never really grasped, but I know I will define their leadership, and no doubt will do something for ASCOCC that balances this style of leadership that I try to demonstrate. And so I implore you to support Talia should they ever ask for your help. Thank you.
Anyone have questions?
You have a council of 12, a little over half of it, it's not filled. Is that typical at this time of year?
It's a little difficult to say. I think that I was blessed that I had nearly a full council at the start of my term, but I understand that movement is kind of a recurring issue that we have with, getting students engaged in student government and also other student roles across campuses.
Yeah, it's fairly normal. I would say in the last several years, it's been challenging to fill all the student positions when they can make more at other jobs. So that's been one of our challenges.
So it's a paid position.
They're a paid position, yeah. So it's great on the resume, getting a paycheck. It's a good way to get to know other people and have experiences like this. And they range from 16 hours a month up to 60 hours a month, depending on the position.
Well, things that you guys are doing are really impressive, and we are really fortunate, I think, as a community to have your efforts and work. I mean, the opportunity, taking the opportunity and creating a welcoming environment for our students is so critical, because so many of our students have a lot of other pressures in their lives, and they don't need this to be a stressful thing, like starting a new place, coming into, or dreading coming into a place, right? So, great job, really well done. I'm so glad that you guys were able to come and talk to us at the end of the term. So congratulations on a job well done, and good luck for next year. We hope to see you again next year, some of you anyway.
Next year.
Oh, we won't.
No, we don't. I just want to say thank you guys for like hearing this out, and you guys do so much for this freedom college, and I love that we've been able to help in any way possible and give back. To me, this job it's way more than a job, it's being able to make a space for everyone, and I'm so proud of what we've all been able to accomplish. And so I just wanted to say thank you.
I will say, for the record, this has been my favorite job, so thank you.
That's wonderful. Anyone else have any comments or?
That's a quick question. Do you wait for people to say, yeah, I'd like to volunteer and do this? Not volunteer, so you paid. Or do you reach out and say, hey, you'd be a good person on the board, consider.
Because a lot of times people just do BS.
Yeah, both, we put the work out there and the students do a good job at getting out there to share, these positions are open. And then we also do rely on folks that are in the classes and working with students in clubs to also share these opportunities. So it is a little bit of both.
Zach, you have it.
I know it's not a requisite, and I have a long time ago past in student life. You do an excellent job of public speaking, and you do an excellent job of representing the work of your team, and it just, it's really impressive. I just have seen that now in college, doesn't matter, so I know. But I think you do a great job.
I just hope that it does my team justice.
It does, and that you come from that place really is that. Thank you.
I would echo that, and it's not easy. It's not easy. Well, thank you again.
I have one more question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
The legislature is entertaining the thought of having a student be on the board. And they've had different iterations out there. What are your thoughts, all four of you, on how this would work and how we can make it happen, whether the legislature goes forward and makes this, or we just do it on our own?
Who wants to take that first?
I can. I think that's a good idea. I think coming from being, a student, student background, I think that a lot of times as a student, we feel like we may not have a voice, or that our voice isn't, like, it won't matter, like it won't really impact, but in my time on AICOCC, I've realized that that's not true, that as a student, sometimes our voices are the most impactful. And so I think if there is a potential for a student to be on the board of directors and help and in capacity, I think that could be monumental on, continuing to move this forward. So I think that it would be a cool thing to do.
Anyways, I hear a lot of opinions about the matter. I think that it would be a fantastic opportunity for our council to be able to participate with board in that manner. I think that the ability of the council to help our students kind of varies at times on like how much like resources we have in the council, how much support we have from external like people as well. And I think the more that we can be close together, the more that we can serve the students. So anything that will bring us together and create more community in our school as well as within the council is a change for good. Alright, well, I guess the naysayer of the belief here. In principle, I think that it is a good idea, but I have some questions about the logistics of a student serving on the board of directors. When I lived in Lapine, I was actually on the board of a special district because I was elected to the Lapine Park and Recreation District. And that was a very valuable learning experience for me, but there was also a pretty steep learning curve, trying to understand some of the more detailed work that goes into running a special district for a public entity. So I wouldn't necessarily wish that on someone who would be going into a similar role with the same amount of experience that I had when I was elected to office. My second concern about the logistics is that I understand that the board members for COCC, for example, are elected from geographic zones. And I am not entirely sure whether or not a student serving on the board would like necessarily meet that residency requirement. So I'm a little unsure of like the logistics and how, various like rules and laws kind of interact with each other. So again, in principle, I think it's a good idea, and I'm always going to advocate for more student representation, but I'm not convinced that this would be an effective way to do so.
Well, all three of you are really, really thoughtful when we just kind of sprang that question on you. This is a complex issue that the legislature has been dealing with, right? Lots of, I do know one thing, we've talked about this as a board a couple of times over the last few months, actually really for a couple of years. We want more engagement with the students. We want to hear from you guys more. We want you to be able to tell us what you're doing, what you're thinking about, what's on your mind, So that, because ultimately, the reason we do this is for our students. I mean, we're all volunteers and that's why we do it. It's the same reason that you guys are doing what you're doing. You want to make it a better place for your colleagues and for the people who come behind you. And so we really do wanna hear more from you, we wanna engage more, so we're working on ways, we've got a committee that's working on those things right now. And hopefully we'll have some ideas that are more concrete and adopted in the fall, when you guys come back, and you can just check in on us.
Yeah, I didn't know that, that committee existed.
We have our committee is called the Advocacy Committee.
Okay.
And we are in the process of revising it to be advocacy and outreach.
Okay.
And the outreach is specifically designed to reach the various constituencies, but our number one focus, our first beginning point is students.
Okay.
That's the first year of that.
Okay, gotcha.
But the board authorized that committee to put together some ideas for how we could go about doing that. So our idea is that we have some plans that we're ready to bring to the board in the next couple of months, and then roll them out when we have a new president in the fall.
Okay, wonderful.
And notwithstanding that she'll never get to see it, Lori's been helping us.
I think all three of them encapsulate the entirety. Very more for me.
Jim, I couldn't hear what you said.
I said, I think the all three of them did a good job of encapsulating the entire issue. We need to hear more from them, but the details are gonna be a struggle, and you hit it right on the head, right on the head. It doesn't mean to solve.
An advocacy committee is probably a good idea. Of course, student representation on that committee is, you know, kind of a low hanging fruit there, but in the interest of having a more consistent relationship and having more representation from students to the board, you know, this is the second term that, you know, a member of ASCOCC has talked to the board at the end of the term, and it's something that, in my personal view, we should continue to do just to, you know, make sure that line of communication stays alive.
And one thing that as you're considering different opportunities to engage students, one thing that I see over and over in my role is the request to gather a group of students for folks to meet with. And to be honest, it's incredibly challenging. They're super busy. They have a lot going on. We usually get the same small group of students and it's really taxing on them. So meeting with students where they're at is my best piece of advice for them, where they're already going, where things are happening. So just, I'm sure you're thinking of those things, but that's just a routine thing every year that I see over.
And the last thing that I would like to note is that our council meetings are public. They are required to have the same, you know, transparency and open meeting requirements that a meeting of the board of directors would have. So if you are interested in attending a council meeting, then that door's open to you.
Do you stream them on Zoom?
We do have a hybrid option for our council meeting, so yes.
Fabulous. Well, thank you guys very, very much. We appreciate you being here. We really appreciate your thoughtful comments and perspective, and especially the way you answer that question, like right off the bat. So thank you. Anything else? Yep. Okay, so we will move on to our consent agenda. I know that we had, I think we have to take them one by one now. Like consent agenda, because we have to vote on each item separately, don't we?
You just have to record every person's vote, so.
We can do them as a group. So, okay, all right, so I think that Erin had eagle eye and found a couple of little corrections for the regular minutes, which Kyle has fixed. Do you mind telling those, Erin?
Oh, yeah, it was just one in board reports, it having listed as attending a meeting that I didn't attend, and then there was a point of clarification in Lucas's presentation in response to a question that was asked, and I just wanted it to be clarified, and it has been, so. That's it, thanks, Kyle.
Okay. Any other comments for the rest of the consent agenda? No, okay, noting none, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move approval. Sorry.
Okay, moved by Alan and seconded by Jim. All those in favor, please, is there any further discussion? Sorry. Noting none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed, please indicate by saying no or raising your hand. Noting none, motion carries unanimously. Now we will move on. We are going to adjourn to the budget hearing for the 2025-2026. So we will temporarily close the regular meeting, and we will open the budget hearing. And I think our first item is whether we have any public comment and testimony on the draft budget for this next year. Okay, noting none, Michael, I think you're up.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I asked Kathleen to prepare this resolution, so I'll turn it over to her.
Great, thank you.
You want me to explain the resolution?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first one, the notice of the supplemental budget hearing. We have to go through this process because our spending related to grants and contracts has increased. Primarily because we received more awards than we anticipated, specifically state grants and some private grants. So that is the supplemental budget is allowing us to appropriate more in our grants and contracts. Any questions on that?
Anyone have any questions?
So as we have the 4 special reserve fund revised, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's correct. We've received more grant and then therefore we're spending more money, so it's actually good.
Yep. Yeah, we received the revenue and we spent the money.
Well, I'll make a motion if nobody else does.
Okay, that would be
Be it
good.
resolved that Central Oregon Community College Board of Directors hereby approve the changes to the 24-25 fiscal year budget as identified in the appropriation resolution.
I'll second that.
Okay, do we have any discussion? Noting none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye or raising your hand.
I
Any opposed, please indicate by saying no or raising your hand, or both. Noting, that was just demonstration, I wasn't voting no. For the record. Okay, noting none, the motion carries unanimously, and that brings us to the appropriations resolution.
Before I get into that, I would like to remind everybody of the presentation I gave a month ago on our projection. So again, this is our projected revenue and projected expenses. We have actual 23-24 and then projected 24-25 all the way through 31, which is required by Oregon budget law. And of course, because of the increased funding for the Madras construction, we had a deficit of $10,399,000. In 25, we expected a surplus of $2,490,000. So that left us with a reserve percentage of 33%, and then we go down to 11 in 2026 based on projection. And it would stay pretty low and not get up to 29% for the foreseeable future. However, we have good news. We've received our first employee retention tax credit refund for $3.6 million 2 weeks ago. Actually showed up in our bank account. We were really excited about it. Now that includes $474,000 in interest. And the quarter that was filed was for the second quarter of 2021. So that could be the first of 2 checks. We also filed for the third quarter of 2021. And that check could be over $3 million as well. So the impact that had on this projection is that we moved the this increased by $3.6 million, which is other income. That brings our reserves to over 37.5%. And then next year, when it was 11% reserve ratio, it's now 14.68. And you can see in 2029 that we get back to 31%.
And those numbers will get better if we get the other half.
If we get the other half, it'll be. So that's great. But we filed it in November of 2023, so it took a while to get it. But we're excited that we got it. We didn't have it, we don't have an audit so far, we could be audited. The second check could be reviewed for more intensity than the first one, but. So there you go, looks better. Thank you, Ira. Oh. Did I really say?
You did, you said it, it's, we're being recorded, so I also wanna, say, and I know I've said this before, and he won't like me to say it, but I don't care. And you know, Michael, really came here and said, we have to make this application. We hadn't made it before. For, you know, based on various recommendations. And Michael said, we have to do this, and I know a firm that can help us. And it's a firm he worked with, in Deschutes Brewery, and we had substantial savings compared to other institutions who use other firms.
I was just gonna say, I have had several clients who have used it, and they're paying like, 20% or 30% of it. And you got to agree with fee, right?
They did it for $8,000
$8,000.
instead of 10% of what we were paying. Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
Good.
So, good job, Michael.
We're in much better shape because of that. Thank you. All right, so that brings us to the resolution.
So the resolution is basically appropriation to provide local government with legal spending authority throughout fiscal year. Separate appropriations are required for each fund in which you have budgeted expenditure. The resolution making appropriations must identify the appropriations by object classification, which correspond to the expenditure categories in the budget, and those are listed in the resolution. So this is Oregon budget law requirement to appropriate and give everybody the legal authority to spend. The options are to make appropriations at this time or not to make appropriations at this time. So we have to do it by July before July 1st. And there's a proposed resolution.
We have questions for Michael or a resolution? A motion.
That's one clarification, that had us back up to 29% in 3 years. And our policy says 2 years. Is there? I don't know the question, more statement, I guess, is that that's just the situation we're in?
Yeah, I mean, there's some modifications we can make in the next 2 years to get it out faster. If we get the ERTC credit, it's done.
It's done,
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I think that maybe, let me try to guess what was part of your theme, just for the question. You know, is this? This is the board's policy. It is not a statutory policy. No one likes that it's gonna take 3 years if they stay the same, not saying that's a good thing, but it is the board's policy and there's no penalty for us to do that, other than we don't like it.
I think our policy says that we have to actually adopt a resolution saying that we're going to be violating our policy for the following reasons. It says something like that when we want to vary from our policy. There is some language. I don't know that that applies to all policies, but there's some language in there about.
Well, we'll definitely review that, and if so, we'll bring the language. Michael will give language.
Thank you.
Sure.
So do we have a motion to approve the resolutions? I think there are 3 appropriations that we're approving. Pardon?
Which one is it? Thank you. Okay, that was the one. Okay, great. I wanted to make sure. Be it resolved that the Central Oregon Community College Board of Directors to hereby make appropriations in the amounts, expenditure categories, and funds as detailed above in section A totaling $160,361,053.
Been moved and seconded to approve, that resolution. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed, please indicate by saying no or raising your hand. Noting none, motion carries unanimously. Thank you, but you're not done. There's more.
The background of the next resolution is the governing body must prepare through resolution the measure 5 limitation category of each of its taxes. This resolution is based for the certification of the tax limitation category that is submitted to the assessor and the Form ED 50. Our permanent rate is 0.6204 per thousand. And general obligations is 3,283,886. So the options are to impose and categorize taxes or not to. So we have to do this by July 1st to submit it to the tax.
Questions for Michael? If not, do we have a resolution?
All right. Be it resolved that the Central Oregon Community College Board of Directors do hereby impose and categorize the taxes provided in the 2025-26 adopted budget at the rate of $0.6204. So 60. How do I do that? Of a cents. Okay, I'm gonna say it like that. Per 1,000 of assessed value for operations and in the amount of 3,283,886 for voter approved general obligation bonds debt service for the fiscal year 2025 through 26. These taxes are imposed and categorized upon the assessed value of all taxable property within the district.
Do we have a second? Jen seconds. So it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Noting none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed, please indicate by saying no or raising your hand. Noting none, motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Michael, but there's still one time.
The next resolution is to adopt the fiscal year 2025-26 budget. The background is the budget committee discussion for the 25-26 budget focused on a lot of different things, but specifically enrollment challenges in higher education, state funding, increasing cost of maintenance, capital outlay, and the college's reserve ratio. The budget was developed to maintain accessibility and affordability for our students, while strategically using grant funds in fiscal year 2025-26. The college will be monitoring the state biennial appropriation for the community college support fund. And it's been confirmed, by the way, that they did increase it by 6.9%, which was in our projection. Student enrollment levels and Mavericks expansion grants and fundraising efforts taking any budgetary action required. No changes are proposed to the budget approved by the Central Oregon Community College Budget Committee on May 14, 2025. The Board of Directors has the power to adjust resources and expenditures as approved by the Budget Committee. However, the governing body's power to change the approved budget is limited. The board can reduce or even eliminate expenditures in a fund, but expenditures cannot be increased in a fund by more than 5,000 or 10%. Whichever is greater. In addition, the board cannot increase the property tax rate or amount approved by the budget committee. If the governing body wants to exceed either of these limits, it must publish a revised financial summary and budget hearing notice and hold another budget hearing. So the options are to adopt the budget at this time or not to adopt the budget at this time. Again, we have to do this by July 1st. We're not.
All right, any questions for Mike? Okay, if not, we have a motion.
Be it resolved that the Central Oregon Community College Board of Directors do hereby adopt the budget for fiscal year 2025-26 in the aggregate amount of $160,361,053 total, all funds approved by the Budget Committee on May 14th, 2025.
Is there a second? Jim seconds. Okay, thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve this resolution. Is there any discussion? Noting none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye or raising your hand. Any opposed, please indicate by saying no or raising your hand. Noting none, motion carries unanimously.
Could I just tell Michael, he did a great job.
Yes, please, that would be great.
You did a great job, Michael. It was a good budget, but
Thank you. I'd like to thank Kathleen and everybody else involved in the process. FLT helped part of it as well, so, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. You had to have had a very, very steep on-ramp and learning curve, and you've come through with flying colors and very few only minor missteps, which is extraordinary for a new person thinking over. So thank you, especially someone who's new to the college and didn't come up through the ranks. And it's not like it's a simple, budget or process or anything.
It
So.
was the.
But thank you, and thanks to you, we've gotten a lot of things sort of normalized that we've needed to for a while and haven't necessarily gotten around to, like an investment policy and such. So thank you for that, to piggyback on what you said, so thanks. Okay, I would like to, with your indulgence, sorry. Someone say something.
Another bad friend.
He's talking about a present.
Oh, I would like to take, just going off script for a second, we're gonna adjourn to open session, but I'd like to take a 5-minute break, no more than 5 minutes. And I need to talk to you two, if that's okay.
Oh, great. Is this because we were talking?
No,
You're in trouble.
no, you're not in trouble at all. You're not in trouble at all. 5 minutes, but please send me back.
Okay.
The Board of Directors for Wednesday, July 11th, 2025. And we will start in information items. Let's just go through them. Does anyone have any questions or comments on the budget status? Or need something from Michael on that? I know Michael would like to talk some more today.
I will.
Okay, noting none, we'll move to the new hire reports. Anyone have questions or comments on that? Okay, that brings us to the Prineville campus update, and we have our own Susie Christensen here to present an update on this campus where we are seated. And Susie, I think it's so cool that you guys put the banner outside that says welcome Cook County graduates. That's or congratulations rather. Nicely done.
We love it too, and if you haven't noticed, we have it on the front and the back, because if you're doing anything at the fairgrounds, you can see our sign that says COCC and you can see our banner that says congratulations graduates. So I wanted to give you a quick update on what we are up to here at the Prineville campus. I think I know everybody, but this is me, Susie Christensen, Director of the Prineville campus. And I want to talk to you today about some of our K-12 partnerships, the community engagement that we're working on, our Prineville and curriculum students, and some goals that we have for the upcoming year. So we do a lot of work in the elementary and middle schools because we're trying to build that pipeline of students coming up into the high school and then of course hopefully the college. And so I do a lot of work with these particular schools, and we bring them here, and we also go to their school as well. We do college and career events, college awareness program. We have all the 7th and 8th grade AVID students over here at the school, at the campus, and we are doing things with our CTE programs. We have the drone program here, we have culinary here, early childhood education, so lots of different programming that they're getting exposure to. And we have a whole host of youth camps that are here during the summer. And those are run by our community learning department, and they are meant for those middle school students. Thanks. Well, please. I can't see. There we go, thank you. And then of course in the high school, I spend a lot of time in the high school and our team spends a lot of time in the high school. We have all of our freshman students come over for our freshman success program in the fall. So every single freshman gets on this campus and we talk to them about what they can be doing to prepare themselves for the next stage, which is hopefully college or some sort of trade school at COCC preferably. Beyond High School night is at the high school, and I go there and talk to them about what they could be doing to prep for the rest of their high school career and then coming into college. CCHS Career and College Fair, you can see our pictures on the bottom, 2 photos. We have a whole host of tables, which is just a sea of these blue tablecloths because we represent just general admissions, and also a lot of our CTE programs come and demonstrate what they have to do. And this particular event sees every single high school student within the span of about 2 hours. So our CTE programs really love to have that type of exposure for a short amount of time. We have a partnership program with our high schools, which is really an incredible opportunity. In the next bullet point that you see, we graduated this year 3 students from high school that received their AEOT from COCC at the same time. We also have 7 students who have earned their core transfer map while they're in high school. So this is one of the things that we've been working toward in the partnership program, which partners the high schools and COCC so students can take classes at the college, and it also meets high school requirements, and the school district pays for those classes. And so that's what those students are doing to receive their AAOT and they're for transfers. Susie, can I say something? Yes, please.
Susie deserves a ton of the credit for this. She has been the driving force behind it. And that's not just me saying that, that's the Kirk County School District says that as well. And she has pushed and prodded and begged and pleaded and everything that you could imagine to make this happen. We had the first one last year and then she got 3 this year. So I'm sure we're gonna have 9 next year.
Yep, sure.
So thank you, Susie, that's a pretty amazing accomplishment. I know I say this every time that we come here, but it's worth noting. Susie does an incredible job of getting out in the community and representing COCC. People in this community know her really well, know that she's COCC and have a positive image of COCC because of her. And in particular, with her exposure to the young students, they see her in the community, you know, I've seen her at events and you can hear the kids, that's the college lady. And that's incredibly valuable because she's so, she's out and about and she's so approachable. And so parents can feel comfortable talking to her going, oh, okay. And kids can start thinking in their mind, even if nobody in their family went to college, maybe they can do it. And so that's just invaluable. So I just want to make sure you get that recognition, Susan. And please go ahead.
Thank you. And that actually sets us up really nicely.
Real quick.
Yeah.
What's the Grizzly Mountain Bowling?
Grizzly Mountain Home Link is one of our newer school options in Crick County. It is a K-12 program and it's geared towards students or families that have typically homeschooled. So it's a hybrid program where those students can do some of their programming online, they can do some of their programming in person at the school.
Give them resources too, give parents resources for the homeschooling.
And we have a growing partnership with them because they just brought on their seniors. They've been bringing on one grade level each year, so they just brought on seniors. So we're really active in the Grizzly Mountain Home Link program, making sure that they have what they need to take classes at COCC. They do not have college now classes or any type of classes for college credit offered in their high school, so we are their option. Yeah.
Is that an ESD program? Or who steps it out?
School district.
Kirk County.
Is it
Kirk
very-
County.
Yeah, school district, yeah. You heard me talk last time about a local donor that gave us some money for some science equipment because that family said, you know what, we see a need. And this person has been involved in this facility and with COCC since we built this building here. They stepped up and they said, we want to give you a donation. We bought that science equipment and we've had 3 stellar science classes this year that have phenomenal enrollment. So we can do great things with very little here at the Prineville campus, and we're really happy to have this addition. You can see that this is a biology class, actually happened in the kitchen where we had dinner tonight, because we have a lot of flexibility to use our spaces in a unique way. Community engagement, we do a lot, as Laura said, we do a lot in the community trying to make sure that everybody knows that we're here. And I am always out in the community trying to find ways that we can make our community members aware of who we are and what we are able to do for them within our community. These are some of our enrollment trends, and I'm really proud of what we have done this year. This particular slide didn't get the updated title, so I'm sorry. These are credit and non-credit students. It's a combination of credit and non-credit students with a Kirk County address, meaning they're taking COCC classes somewhere. They could be in Prineville, they could be online, they could be in Bend. But this is what our community is doing. You can see this marked increase in taking classes at COCC between 2024 and 2025. And
How's fall shaping up?
fall is shaping up really nicely. We don't have numbers yet, of course, but when you look at our point in time enrollment, things have increased. Yeah. This slide shows credit and non-credit students taking classes at the Prineville campus. So this is a little bit different population of students, and you can see these huge increases. And I will tell you why we have those increases. Well, one of the reasons. These major increases in headcount and FTE are mainly in fall and spring, because we had a phenomenal schedule. A student can come here to the Prineville campus and take the classes they need to complete their degree without doing any online or going somewhere else to complete their classes. And you can see what happens when we have the classes we need and the time slots we need, and the number of classes that are available. There are other factors, but that's the major factor in what has helped with our increased enrollment.
Susie, you know, Anne Marie talked to us about the policy that we adopted for a couple of years where we weren't gonna cancel a class just because it had low enrollment, so that we could assure our students that they were gonna be able to take those classes, it wasn't gonna be canceled and then they'd have to go somewhere else for that class. Has that helped as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's definitely noticed, that was not,
Yeah, no, that has been incredibly helpful, that we've had students who wouldn't be able to complete without those classes that might have only had 2 or 3 students enroll. We run the class and then they're able to complete their degree or certificate, yeah. It's been really an important piece.
good job, Anne Marie. And everybody involved in that.
No, I do want to say, that's really, Anne Marie's and her team's idea, it's their brainchild, and
I'm gonna give credit to my immediate predecessor who started it.
And
we
that's
continue to develop.
Okay. But that really comes from a vision from academic affairs, and that, thank you for mentioning Betsy as well. I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty skeptical, but
I was a little.
typically I've been proven wrong.
There, you're laughing at your own joke. Yeah.
Well, I am.
And I hope to come to you next time to show you even bigger increases for the subcoming year. So, So some goals that we have, 20 classes minimum each term, which is going to give us those huge increases again, or maybe they won't be as huge this upcoming year, but I'm really hopeful for some great increases in enrollment again this coming year. We're gonna focus this year on recruiting adult learners. We really think we're doing a nice job of getting into our K-12 school system. We want to focus more on those non-traditional students, so out of high school students, and how can we attract them to our campus and to COCC in general. We want to increase the number of students who utilize the partnership program, especially at Grizzly Mountain Homeland. We think that that is a great place to have, to put our resources and our time, so that we can increase the number of graduates that we're getting, COCC graduates through that partnership program. And we want to build some community awareness about credit and non-credit. So that's just a general awareness campaign that we really want to focus on. Because amazingly, we've been here for 14 years and there are still people in our community who say, where's COCC? I've never heard of it. So that's going to be an ongoing issue and we're going to ask more.
Here, question.
Yeah.
This is important to your organization. See, and it's important the instructors that we get to help teach the schools. Is there an incentive for them, or what is it? Is there an incentive, or they just do it because they want to? So they have to get certified, right?
Yeah, we have an element of our promotion process that includes service to the college. And teaching on branch campuses is considered a service to the college, and so many people will use that as their service to the college. So that's one incentive. We do provide mileage reimbursement, that is not an incentive, that's just practice, a good practice. But I think that that's important for us to do.
We also have a board of faculty who wants to be here, not that others don't want to be here, I don't want to indicate that, but who really desire to be here, and we encourage that mentality. Yeah, please come back.
Susie, do many community organizations use this facility?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
Yes, absolutely. So this facility is co-owned by COCC and Crick County. And we have a lot of county agencies that use this facility for free because they are a joint owner with us. And we have others that come in and utilize our facility, like we have nonprofits that come in. We have folks that want to rent our facility, especially our kitchen. There is not a commercial kitchen here in Crick County except for ours that you can rent. So we have folks that come and want to rent that to make their whatever they want to sell at the farmer's market or wherever they're selling that. And then we just have general folks who need a space for something and they rent from us. And there were some on that community partner list, there were some folks that are community partners with us that use our facility. you. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Any questions for Susie?
No, just thank you, Susie, that was great.
Yes,
presentation.
Yeah, we are so lucky to have you. You do such a great job. You're a terrific ambassador for COCC and for college. I mean, I cannot, I think, overstate the importance of Susie in not just representing COCC in the community and encouraging students to come here and that they can and fostering and developing partnerships, but also in working to create almost single-handedly a culture of college going among people who think that maybe it's not possible for them, and that's pretty awesome and pretty hard to do, so thank you.
Yeah, is there anything else that you think we should know, Susie? Just, I mean, you presented some amazing things, but.
I think we're doing the best we can, and I don't really know what more you might need to know that could help you in what you're advocating for. That would help our Prineville campus just keep thinking about all of our branch campuses and how we can serve those students in an equitable way with all of our other students, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item is gonna be Sean, with the grants update.
Can I just tee him up really quick?
Yeah, oh, you bet.
As you know, Sean Tubbs is the grants manager at COCC, and we like to think about it on the road once in a while. And it's a really unique thing to raise money for a public institution and write grants, and Sean's been in the role now for several years and has grown his team and grown the impact of the project, and I really mean it when I say it's a pleasure to work with him. We hired him out of conservation funding in his previous life. If you know anything about conservation, I think it's complicated. So navigating both private foundations with the federal grant structure and all that in between is a bit of a skill, and so there's your intro. Appreciate having you.
Thank you, that's super kind. Let me just get this all pulled up here. We're not doing a PowerPoint, so we're going outside the box here, so.
Yeah, he's tech savvy too.
We'll see what that is. So yeah, I'm Sean Devlin, I'm the grants director. I represent COCC as well as the COCC Foundation, and I've done, I think, an annual report presentation to you all before. But it's been a couple of years, so I want to talk about grants update over the last 4 years, which has been since I've been here, so it's kind of a good summary of all the things that I'm knowledgeable about, how things have grown over the last 4 years. So I'm going to talk about grants in general and their impact they've had at COCC. So, just to start out. So, how are grants used at COCC? This is just a really basic one, but it's important to know. So, new and innovative projects, a lot of times pilot type projects. Starting new programs, starting new services, so it's gonna be rare that we're funding these basic college services or things that we already do. So a lot of times, the new and expansion of things, that's usually what grants are gonna be focused on. A lot of times, grants are gonna align college programs with workforce needs. So we need a bunch of nurses in the community, or we need a bunch of welders in the community. We're gonna go out and get some grants that allow us to provide that training. Grants are a lot of times gonna benefit underserved students, so rural students, low income students, etc. That's almost always a requirement of grants.
Good. Well, this is why I asked him for a PowerPoint. A lot of times grants are going to provide support for students that the college otherwise cannot provide. So things like childcare assistance, transportation assistance, scholarships, etc. Finally, they're going to fund capital projects all the time. Madras campus expansion is a great example of that. And finally, grants have to align with COCC strategic plan. Shout out to Alicia here. We don't just go for money just because it's out there. We want the projects to really drive the funding and not make the funding drive projects. So we're strategic about that. So that's just general how grants are used at college. The grants team. So we have our great headshots here. Grants department is 2.0 full-time employees. So I'm the grants director. So I work mostly on the development side. So doing the actual grant writing,
building relationships with funders, helping faculty and staff develop ideas that are gonna be right for funding. And then once we get grants, we hand it off to grant specialist, Stephanie Brody, who helps faculty and staff deal with implementation of grants, which is an art and a science all combined into one. And then we have our fiscal department, which does all the invoicing, the budgeting, and that's Jenna Flannery. So she's not actually part of the grants department, but she is, we cannot do it without her. So we have a small but mighty team. This is just a real quick timeline, just to show kind of how grants evolved with the college. So 2019, grants become part of college advancement, which of course is the newly formed division at COCC, led by Sam Boone. 2021, we expand the coordinator position from half-time to a full-time position. And then during that time, 21 to 22 to 23, I think a large, due to having a full-time staff person, just more time and effort on it, we're able to expand the number of grants we get. You know, threefold at least. The grant coordinator position that changes the grants director position to take on all the new grants we're part of. And then last year, we hired our first grant specialist to help with the implementation side. I talked about that I can no longer handle myself. That's just a quick timeline of how we've evolved. This is total new grant funds awarded by year. So you can see 2021, about $2.3 million, 20 new projects awarded. The following year, about double that, nearly $5 million. In the last 2 years, it's been around $8 million in new grant awards per year, around 39 new projects per year. So that means now, so currently we have 71 active grants totaling over $21 million of active budget. So it's a lot of, you should have again, 71 active grants totaling over $20 million in budget. Yeah, so it's a lot. And when you look through the spreadsheet, it's a lot of different grants.
Sean, can I ask a question about how you said that you try not to just chase money, you try to, target specific. Is there a sort of a central process by which you decide what grants you're gonna pursue? Or do folks, have ideas and come and talk to you, or kind of how does that work? Because I would imagine you would probably get more requests than you probably have time to do.
Yeah, it depends. I'd say the ideal situation is somebody comes in years before. It does happen. It's like we got somewhere, it's like brainstorming, like, all right, what product do you want to do? And then I know we kind of develop the idea, make it talk about just like project management, how this would work, and then we have that just sitting there. And I keep a list, and then if a funding opportunity comes up, we're like, all right, match that project to that time. That's like 20% of the time, and then like everyone, I think a lot of people understand grants, especially with the federal government stuff. They come out with an announcement, and then you got like 2 months. We do try to keep an eye on things so we can plan ahead. So yeah.
Sean, can you speak to the approval process a little bit too?
Yeah. So anytime when we're going after, when we develop a new idea, it has to go through the department chair, the program director, the dean, and as well as like Anne Marie or Alicia, depending on what side it's under, just to give us the thumbs up, like, yes, go for this, develop this idea, make this project happen. And then also, there's a second process where we're actually about to submit the grant application, where we send it out to even more folks just to make sure the budget's right, to make sure everyone's on board, so that we're not just going after funding that is like putting that COCC down rabbit hole. Because once you get a grant, you're committed to that, so.
And multiple impacts for multiple departments, right? So we'll check with NPR to make sure, there's 5,000 for marketing in this grant. Are you aware of that? Can you build that into your timeline? So it gives some off ramps to Sean. He's not the one always to say yes or no. It's like, here's it's presented, here's the tie-in. And you guys can make sure you've seen every detail and make sure you're committed to that too, because a lot of these grants have a lot of work in a lot of areas.
I was just thinking about it, thinking it would require a ton of coordination.
Yeah, but he makes it efficient.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been an efficient process out of it, really, and it helps to have that bank of projects ready to go and then scanning always for funders. So the matching gets more simple each time.
Yeah, I would say in over the years, I know the faculty and staff better and better, and I kind of know who does what, so I'm able to know like, well, we work well. At first, I was just sending out every opportunity, everyone, who wants to do this? So I've gotten more strategic about that, so it helps to be here for a while. Because as you know, COCC does, so I get to see everything that college does, and it is mind blowing. From Prineville to Bend, from aviation to culinary, it's like, there's so many different experts we have and. Grants, you really need an expert to work with to help write the grant and stuff, so it's interesting. So yeah, you can see grants. Awards are going up a lot per year. In terms of funding by source over these last 4 years. Pretty evenly distributed between federal, state, and private, and then local government has played a little tiny slice of the pie. It's worth noting that like we have less federal grants, but federal grants are by far the largest. We have by far the most private grants, but they are the smallest. So we get around 17 or so private grants a year. I think they average around $50,000 or so. We get about 4 or 5 federal grants a year. And they're like average about $600,000. So but it all comes down to it ends up being about fairly straightforward.
What's your crystal ball on the federal side of things?
I mean, it's not good. Yeah, it's not good. We haven't had as many grants canceled. It's so far, we've been okay here, for the most part. But look, going into the future for now, there's just nothing coming out, so it's really, yeah, it's not good right now, for sure. And this is just to show, the different funders. I'm not gonna go through this, but we can just like scroll through the list and just to see. These are just the last 4 years. So 51 total funders, 25 private, 14 state agencies, 8 federal funders, 4 local governments. So this is just a whole bunch of relationships that we have out in the community, in the state, and even nationally involved with funders, which I think is really good for the college, just to get our name out there, build more relationships, so.
Well, and that diverse sort of grants helped us a little bit absorb what's being, lost in the federal opportunity.
Yeah. And this is just real broad here about how we spend the grant money. This is as broad of paper as you can get, but you can see, so scholarships. So we awarded over 300,000 this last year. We anticipate awarding about $500,000 next year. And this is grant funded scholarships. This is totally separate from the foundation scholarships, which are complete private philanthropy, one-on-one donors. This is grant-based scholarships. So this is adding to what they already give out each year. Personnel costs, so salaries and benefits, make up a large portion, as you'd expect, 60% of grant funds or so going towards that. That supports over 30 employees at the college. So there's a lot of employees at the college that have supported either wholly or partly by grants. Indirect funds are something that we collect that just goes back to the college's general fund, and you collect it usually on government, state, or federal grants. It goes back to pay for my salary, or Stephanie's salary, just to help offset the cost of grants overall at college. So we collect a pretty large, substantial amount of money from those indirect funds. So that's just a really broad, showing how we use the grant funds. So that's grants in general. I do want to highlight now, kind of take a little tour, go through how the grants have impacted specific projects. So Madras is at the top of mind, 3.4 million or so in grant funding so far for the project from 9 different funders. $500,000 or so in pending grants down to the wire here. So grants make us up a significant portion of the Madras expansion budget. I don't think we could do it without grants involved.
No question.
The SBDC, so they've received over 1.2 million over the last 4 years, allowing them to start new programs, new services like I talked about. So childcare business assistance, business advising folks on rural Central Oregon, business advising for Spanish speaking business owners, and business programs for veterans. Those have all been funded by grants over the last 4 years. So it's really allowed the SBDC to expand their reach. Warm Springs Automotive Education. This is a good example of pilot type projects like I talked about. $70,000 awarded for 3 private funders, allowing COCC to offer automotive courses on site at Warm Springs in partnership with the 509J School District, as well as a competitive tribe at Warm Springs. Expanding resources for student veterans. Nearly $800,000 has been awarded to these programs in the last 4 years. This has allowed us to hire and expand the role of the Veterans Coordinator position, hire our first Veterans Outreach Specialist, and it paid for the expansion of the Robert D. Maxwell Veterans Center, which just happened. That was paid for by a federal grant. It's amazing if you haven't been there to see it. So grants have really allowed us to do stuff that we otherwise probably wouldn't be able to do. Our college preparation programs, nearly $1.3 million have been awarded to these college preparation programs, allowing us to teach college preparation courses in local high schools, host summer symposiums, and with the help of grants, we now serve over 200 students per year at 10 plus local high schools. These are really good examples of funding these projects in the early stages. So grant funding almost paid for all of these programs right initially, and now as they prove themselves successful, we can start moving them over to the general fund. That's kind of the ideal situation for grant programs. Get new money, start a new program, prove it successful, transition over to a more sustainable social project. Expansive health-related programs, so this is tying into workforce needs here, so $1.4 million has been awarded to these programs. This allows us to start all sorts of new health training programs, community health worker program, peer support specialist program, development of the RN to BSN bachelor's program, and hiring a health careers outreach coordinator to recruit students into these programs, all paid for with grant funds. So this is tying directly into workforce needs of the community. Scholarships for students, I touched on this briefly, but just to talk about it a little more. So over the last 4 years, we've awarded nearly $1 million in grant funded scholarships. Again, this is on top of foundation scholarships. And these grant funded scholarships are a little different than foundation scholarships because they can do things like be a full ride scholarship, which is like tuition and fees plus the cost of living. Then we even have one that pays for a student's second year at COCC, pays for 2 years at the University of Oregon, and 1 year of an accelerated master's program. So some really cool grant funded scholarships out there.
What kind of funders are funding scholarships?
Let's see. National Science Foundation is a huge one. They've provided, gosh, at least half of that. They're really big funders of scholarships for STEM-based programs. And I'd say there's a lot of private funders as well that a lot of times we try to put in scholarships as part of any grant, especially for like developing a new program, like community health worker program. That's a new program. Let's build into the grant a bunch of scholarship money as a way to get students in, like a recruitment tool. Like, hey, we have this new program, and if you come, it's going to be completely free for you.
Yeah, research, GMAS have that.
First generation.
Yeah, state funds as well. Our community education youth programs, so Susie touched on it a little bit, but I know it's been a big part of this, but over $600,000 awarded over the past 4 years, 9 different grants. Really with the focus on rural youth camps. So mostly our branch campuses, and with the help of grants, enrollment has doubled since 2022. Last year, served over 800 youth. And the grants, what they allow us to do mostly is to offer these programs for free or to reduce costs to rural residents. So again, allowing us to do things that we otherwise probably wouldn't be able to do. The final project or final thing I want to highlight is just boosting support services in general for students. So we've received $800,000 for this, allows us to support students with like a college career coach specific alone for students. Expansion of the COCC food bank, like Lindsay talked about, hiring a benefits navigator, and as well, the planned consolidation of the student support services into one campus location, which is going to happen at some point soon. That's all being paid for there.
Did you elaborate on the benefits?
Yeah, benefits navigator is something it's a grant that's been given the last couple of years to all community colleges in Oregon, actually, and it's kind of a pilot project. It is someone that connects students to existing support services that they can access to, like help them access food sources, housing, that type of stuff. And I believe it's the Strive.
If you've heard of Thrive, or a nonprofit that we were in our college district, we partner with Thrive to provide these services since they've got a skilled group of staff to make it stuff. So great organization.
And then I just wanted to highlight a couple of funders. Like I said, we have 51 different funders over the last couple of years. Roundhouse Foundation and Central Oregon Health Council, they're relatively small, they're private, nonprofit, local. They've contributed $1.5 million to COCC over the past 4 years, 25 separate grants. And it's from the food bank to the campus, Magic campus expansion, to scholarships. Like I think they just really deserve a lot of credit, from us, just to know that they've given more money than a lot of really big funders have, so it's pretty incredible what they've done for the college.
I was just gonna mention the CTE funding they do as well specifically.
Yeah, buying welding gloves for students, doing, so many different projects that they've partnered with COCC on. And they're much easier to deal with a federal grant, for example. So I appreciate it.
Fewer strings.
Fewer strings attached, yeah. So yeah, that's it. We put out the annual grants and impact report every year. I have some copies of the 2024 report there. If you want a printed version, I think we emailed out a online version as well. So yeah, that's it. And if you have any questions, additional questions, let me know.
Anyone have questions?
Well, Oregon, the Central Oregon Health Council, isn't that a Medicaid support program?
There,
Civic source.
yeah, it's the way they get their funding is, I could not explain it all right here, but yeah, so I'm not qualified to speak to it, but they are considered a private philanthropy based organization, so.
Okay, great.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Exactly. Yes. So did we do all of this? No. Sean,
He's out.
oh. Sean, thank you so much. I'm sorry, we're going back to whether the board needs a resolution to approve a policy deviation. So, but thank you very, very much for the presentation. I think that you have proven to be an incredibly valuable person and department to the college, so thank you. This is fantastic. I mean, we see it like when you bring news to us that we've gotten the grant, but we haven't, it's only when you come and give us the overview, we go, wow, that's up. So especially, I was really impressed with all of the grants you were able to marshal, and I know you're probably like everyone at COCC, you give credit to a lot of people, but you had to spearhead it, all of the funds that you've managed to procure for healthcare careers. Because that's something that's really important right now in our community, and so that's pretty impressive, so thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, thank you.
See ya.
We are now at the strategic plan, year 2 summary, and we will hear from the SLT members.
Just one sec while we navigate YouTube and some weird things that are happening technology wise. Okay. Lori.
I get to start off here with the easy slides, right? Just want to remind you that our strategic plan should and does support the mission of the college, empowering students and transforming communities. And that the next slide goals that also support the mission of being a student-ready college, access, community engagement, workforce development, and college sustainability. And so one of the things that we are asked to prove every so often to the Northwest Commission on Colleges and Universities is, are we fulfilling our mission? And what that means at its most basic level is, are we making positive progress towards goals, measuring our progress through reasonable metrics? And if we're not, do we have a plan for improvement? And so that's what we really look toward. And we have brought to the board for your approval a number of indicators. And when we created those indicators and when we were talking with you about them, we really focused on a number of qualities. Do they align with national best practices? are there comparator institutions who measure similar things for the same thing? Can we disaggregate the data for the indicator? Because more and more our accreditors ask us to do this, although they are being challenged by the US Department of Education to maybe not do that anymore, which would be, in my view, regrettable. Do they produce data that we could act upon? We look at trying to update our targets, you'll see some updates here based on what we learned. We talked about just the right stretch for the target so that we're aspiring to do good and to improve, but we're not setting a goal that is so far out that it's simply so discouraging, we would never meet it. And one thing I want to note is that in this presentation, you'll see that some of the data is preliminary, or some of it we don't have just yet. And what we've also discovered through this year's strategic plan process is we just don't get a lot of this data till a little bit later in the summer. Some of it we're wondering if we're ever going to get from entities I'm not going to name. But they're not us. I don't want to offend any of them. So you will see that. And so what I've asked, and what I'll ask Greg to do too, and he can obviously do what he wants, but what I asked these folks to do is come back with an update on just the indicators in September, because we will have a complete set of data then, and let you know we have it and we're looking at it. And probably what we're going to suggest at the end of this presentation as well is that we would move this summary strategic plan yearly update to September as a whole. So there, I got the easy part. How'd I do?
So far, so.
Did I do okay? All right.
So far.
So far, let's see.
So what she's saying is, we'll see in 3 months and I won't be here.
I'm saying, I'm very clear, I'm just making some questions.
All right. Well, we're gonna start off by looking at our first goal around being a student-ready college. And just to remind you, that definition focuses on welcoming all students by addressing their individual needs and helping them achieve their goals. And we have 4 specific indicators here: fall to winter retention, fall to fall retention, graduation rates, and transfer rates. And this is gonna be one of those indicators that you'll see we have very, very preliminary data. Believe it or not, I'd love to give you this year's graduation rates, but we don't actually award the degrees and process all that until the next couple of weeks, right? So that's when these will circle back and on. The other piece I'll just give you a heads up is we're gonna run through a whole lot of this data. And at the end, we'll share with you our dashboard. So you can look at that later on in your own time if you really are a data wonk like I am. But it gives you a nice snapshot of everything we're gonna share. So the first of these is fall to winter retention rates. And this looks, we have our data from our fall 2023 cohort. So it's who was here in fall of 23 and returned that immediate following winter. We don't have this year's data yet, or haven't really measured it yet, because as a state, we don't do that collectively until, where are we, this upcoming fall. So we don't really have comparator institution data for this last fall yet. So we want to be positive here, and we should hopefully have that for you this fall. But you can see our fall to winter retention rate, those bars, and do be careful when you look at these bars. They look like there's huge swings, but just it's a nature of how the graph is laid out. They're really, we hover around, I don't know, 75% average over the last 4 years. And you can see down at the bottom, I hope I don't screw some up. There we go. You see down here at the bottom where we updated our indicators. And one of the things we really looked at was saying, where are we going to make the biggest difference? And both Andrew and I and others feel pretty strongly that all these student ready indicators, the niche that's really going to move the dial is around guided pathways. And that kicks into play in fall of 26, which gives me a little bit of heart palpitations because that's really only a year away. But it's the outcomes a lot of that work that will really impact a lot of the student ready.
Can I add as well? Any changes or adjustments to targets, the original and the updated, they're relatively small, but they are always more aspirational. We didn't lessen the target and make it less difficult, but they're more aspirational.
And just some observations. Honestly, this one we don't have a ton of observations on yet because we don't have that most recent data. But one of the things you'll see in all of our indicators where it's possible is what our peer institution data comes from. And in this particular one, the only peers we have to draw from is what's called our Oregon Guided Pathways peers. And that's when the state has said, here's the institutions who are doing guided pathways work, and they're most similar to you for whatever enrollment reasons, program offering reasons, whatever the case may be. This is not like others you'll see that are measured at the federal level. And so that data hopefully we'll have for you later this summer. But when we look at our own data, some things to note is first, it only includes first-time students. And that parallels a lot of national trends around who we measure, right? And so we wanted to stay consistent on that front. That also follows the state's definition, so we can have those peer institutions. But when we look at our own data, we're right now at 76% retention rate. That is incredibly strong for community colleges. Interestingly, that first term or fall to winter retention rate, when you break down to different populations, I only showed those that had kind of big ranges. But veterans, 100% retention rate. Not surprising because one, they receive incredible support from our veterans program and our benefits coordinator, and two, they receive full funding. So that is a tremendous lift for our veteran students. Pell eligible students, right? Those are students who are low income qualified students, 79%. And when we look at our BIPOC and first gen students, they're a little bit low from our overall average, and they're at 73%. When we broke that down in looking at years past, that's about, some of these are way above average for the state peers, some are a little bit lower, but we'll see what those numbers bring when we get that updated data from the city. The next indicator looks at fall to fall retention. What this indicator does, same reason, when we want to have national peers, and you'll see that in a moment, they don't actually submit their data until this spring. So we won't have those national comparative data information, and that's not validated for several more months. But we'll have that for you in September. You can see that our target is around 54%, which is a pretty big leap up from our original indicator. When Anne-Marie and I looked at this indicator, we looked back at historical norms. It took a pretty conservative approach. And when we started doing this across the SLT, we realized how conservative we were. So this is one that we said we need to stretch ourselves a little bit and bring it back up a little bit higher rates.
Alicia, I feel like I should know this, but how does the fact that, by design, we're to your institution? And so, if someone's graduating, we're not gonna retain them. So is that why this number is so much lower than the
Fall and winter.
fall and winter?
Yeah. And you hit the nail on the head, many reasons for it. First, we know a lot of our students are gonna graduate with a one-year certificate, or sometimes they're already graduated, so they're not factored into that number. Or they're here for a certain set of courses and then they're transferring on. So we will never hit 100% when it comes to fall retention, right? So all of those students are factored in.
And we'll probably never hit 75% like we like the other,
Right.
because there's like a built-in group that's not going to, but they're still successful.
Absolutely.
And this is everyone though, right? Not just the first timers. This is everybody.
Yes, this is our full-time, first-time in college students. So it isn't everybody. It's not, to me, my bias is it's not any higher ed. It's not the best way to measure fall retention, but it's how we did it at a federal level. So it gives us that comparative institution base. So what's challenging to me in this, and then the indicators Anne-Marie is going to cover, is it doesn't capture part-time students. We know the vast majority can keep this go part-time. And if we want comparative institution data, it's kind of what we have to go with. So
It's just frustrating because when you talk to someone who doesn't understand this, they think, wow, if I were college that had a 50% retention rate, I'd be out of business. And it's a completely different model.
And I say some community colleges shifted their work to they'll look at to define student success as looking at a 3-year look back. Who's still enrolled with you, who's graduated, who moved on to somewhere else, and who earned a degree for somewhere else. And count all of those as successes and looks at that on a continuum. And so that may be something as we move into our next strategic plan that we shift thinking instead of parsing these out, think more holistically across.
The Federal Reserve for, I want to say it was Philadelphia, but somewhere on the East Coast, was trying to come up with and they were working with a bunch of community colleges across the country, trying to come up with better metrics, standardized metrics of success for community colleges to use?
There are, I think you and I talked about this, so I don't.
Yeah, after I came back from
It's sounding
ACT.
familiar. There are.
Yeah.
There are various organizations. Aspen, the Voluntary Framework of Accountability, National Community College Benchmarking, right? I mean, there are many ways, many sets of data that people kind of want to put forward as the gold standard. Again, we're sort of looking to things we can compare to, and we're trying to focus on one rather than lots. You know, I mean, more just a view. The only way you're really gonna know if you're getting student success is if you know what the student's specific goal is, and assuming they know on day one, if it changes and do they ultimately get there? And that's just impossible to gather. So, yeah, I mean, I just think this is always gonna be pretty very imperfect. Yeah, you know, I just wanna also say, because I agree, there are some really reasonable reasons. There's some really good reasons, sound reasons why those numbers are low. But there are also other reasons, and there are all the reasons why we're trying to find ways to help, right? The life challenges, the lack of familiarity with higher ed challenges, the I haven't been to college in a while and I need some help challenges, so. I'm just saying there are a lot of other reasons that where we have to try to impact those factors.
I think the previous slide showed where you invest in those groups, you have higher success rates. When you see that?
Totally.
Right, from following.
Alicia, can I ask you one more question? Bring not derail us, but what are you all thinking of and how our indicators might be impacted by Pell Grant changes?
Yeah, so, not gonna try and get on my soapbox, because I think you all will be on that soapbox with me. It's gonna be hard to tell what the true impacts are. My biggest concern around Pell Grant changes are that the requirement to go to actually more than full time to receive that grant. And you already saw in the previous slide how Pell Grant students, that makes a huge positive impact for them. So that to me is a big concern. The other concern is the removal of some federal programs that provide intensive wraparound support services. Some of you heard me talk about the TRIO grant, which is one that Sean and I worked on recently. There's some indication that those types of grants are going to be completely pulled from all community colleges. So between Pell and the TRIO programs and other support services like that, I think that's going to be tremendous impact, negative impact on student success.
And I mean, we applied for TRIO.
We have one application in for TRIO, and we have 2 more queued up.
And those have remarkable outcomes, remarkably successful outcomes. They are proven by any standard. It is beyond the pale to take something so clearly effective and say, we're not going to do.
The success rates in those programs are astronomical compared to students applying age.
Yeah, Pell is the backbone of a lot of communities in this country too, because it keeps the community college going. It's beyond the pale, I agree.
It's not only hurt success rates, it's gonna hurt enrollment rates tremendously.
Absolutely.
So looking at fall to fall retention, you can see some comparative institution data here. IPEDS is our national, I can't remember what it even stands for here. Secondary post-education data system or something like that. Our IPEDS comparator institutions have a 3% higher fall to fall retention rate. All of our Oregon community college peers have a 14% lower fall to fall retention rate. And our Oregon guided pathways comparators are 2% less than us, but overall, a little bit higher for Latinx or 2 or more ethnicities. And what's important to see here, and along with some slides Amory's going to show you with these same comparisons, is just the wide range of fall to fall retention rates when we look at what we consider our comparison comparator institutions. And there's lots behind that. When you look at some of our IPEDS comparator institutions, they could have a larger cohort of 1-year certificate programs, and then students are coming back. That could be why the retention rate is so much lower, right? And so until we really get into some data sharing agreements, partnership with those institutions, we can kind of speculate on some of that. But it does show how setting the target in this particular indicator is really challenging. And you'll see these types of comparison institutions in other indicators too.
I've got an integrated post-secondary education data system.
There it goes.
Yeah,
Thank you. And then you can see some of the observations about the COCC only data. You know, again, we're at 55%, and then you see the retention rates for different populations that we are able to sort. Any questions on that before we switch over to graduation rate?
Who else is your stars backwards?
In Oregon, all of us are doing some level of it, yeah, but nationally, it's. Yeah.
We have to data sets for all supposedly.
Yep.
There were 4 cohorts, this is the 4th one, we're in the last.
So graduation rates are another common measure that colleges use to measure our success. In particular, we're using student ready college. I'm going to start at the bottom of the page. You'll notice our original indicators were at 23% or greater. We came to those indicators before we actually had data from our parent institutions. So you'll notice that the next 3 columns are more of the stretch goal. Those are more informed by the data that we had to look at. Moving to the graph at the top, what I want to remind you is that when we're looking at graduation rates, we're looking at 3 years in which a student would be able to meet that graduation goal. So for example, if we're looking at a fall 2021 cohort, those students, we give them 3 years to complete. We're measuring their data in 2024. Okay, so remember that.
And I would also add to Erin's comment from earlier, this is that same population.
Yeah.
Where it's full-time, first-time in college students, so it doesn't count for our it doesn't count transfer in students. But that gives us national comparators.
So we're gonna take that column on the right, fall 2021, and then at the graph at the bottom, the table at the bottom, you're looking in the second column. There we go. So you'll notice that at 25%, we're just a hair under our goal. So we're in an almost met category at this point on that one. Looking at some more specific events. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the fall, the 2019 cohort, which is the cohort against which we can now compare ourselves to other institutions and organizations. So we're looking at, let's see, so our IPEDS comparators were a little higher than us. We're at 25%, they're about 35%. We're about equal in graduation rates to all of our community college peers in Oregon. And we're a little bit, let's see, and our guided pathways peers are a little bit behind us. So we're doing a little bit better than they are at this point. Even though guided pathways hasn't completely kicked in, I think that's a good start for us, right? Little jump start for when we get that going. But when we're looking at the 25% graduation rate just for COCC, we can again disaggregate in a number of ways. Note that our BioPOP students are graduating at a slightly higher rate. First gen health students slightly lower, and veterans quite lower, 13%. Yeah.
Do you have a sense of why we've got such a high rate of veterans retention versus a low graduation rate? That seems strange. If they were 100%.
Yeah, I know, like,
I mean, staffing and funding and a coordinator, this is 2019 data, what you saw was
that's
more
true.
recent data, right? So that was fall of, right, wasn't that last term of this year, right? So
Yeah, that
again, I think you invest in that program, you put something in place, some of it's got that.
so that would be an interesting one to see.
To watch. The other element I would say is the vast majority of our veterans are in our aviation program. And as they get different levels of certification, they might top out and be flight instructors and not necessarily go for the full aviation degree.
Yeah, that's a good point too.
Okay, so looking at transfer rates, the fourth in this category is quite a common measure for us to look at. Again, this refers to first time, full-time students, who move from COCC to another 2-year or 4-year institution. So either of those transfers are measured by this. For our fall 2021 cohort, we're looking at a 21% rate, and if you'll compare that to second column in the table at the below, at the bottom, you'll see that we have not met that goal. Because our below 22% would say we have not.
But that's the 2021 data and the goal is for 24-25, right?
Well, it's the 2021 cohort, but we measure it.
Oh, you're measuring it 24-25.
Yeah.
That's right, you explained.
Yeah, it's that, yeah, it also uses that 3-year span.
Okay.
Okay, so a little bit more of, what did I do? Errors. Oh, thank you very much. All right, so when we're comparing ourselves to other iPads institutions, I'm gonna talk about this a little bit backwards because I like to brag on us. We are about 8 to 10%. I think we looked at some other numbers and they needed to update that. I think it's actually 10% now. We're about 10%, or they're about that lower than us. We're about yeah, we didn't update that one either. We're actually about equal in terms of our Oregon Community College peers. And in terms of our guided pathways peers, we are about 5% below those. So we were doing some work earlier and meant to update these and somehow missed this slide. In any case, looking at our overall rate of 21%, again, we can disaggregate our bilingual students doing quite well in terms of our overall rate, Pell, Christian, and veterans, lower rates than us. I should note too, that in between the graduation rate and transfer rates, those students aren't duplicated, so those are totally separate measures.
That's why a lot of institutions, to your question earlier too, Erin, bring those data points together because they're both seeing successes. All right. Our next goal focuses on access and looking at providing students the equitable opportunities and resources they need to achieve their goals with the indicators we see here. There.
Yeah, great, go for it.
Okay. Our industry penetration rate. This looks at any student who is age 15 and older who's taking a class with COCC. And you can see that our penetration rate is relatively equal over the course of the last 3 academic years. Again, we'll measure this one this summer once we conclude this year. But one of the things we noted, it's maybe in the next slide too, one of the things we noted, it's something like, was it 200 students?
Yeah.
To even get
I think that's right, yeah.
full percentage increase, and so don't recognizing that do a full percent increase in our penetration rate is a pretty big lift. But regardless, you can see our goals down here, where we've upped our indicators to be more in tune with where we believe we're going as an institution and some of the programs we have are offering, looking at our Madras campus expansion. So stretch ourselves a little bit from our original 5.5% goal. So when we look at some of the things around the industry penetration rate, we don't have clear institution data. Brandon, our institutional effectiveness team, called around for our counterparts in Oregon community colleges, and nobody tracks this data in any holistic way. So this is an indicator unique to us. It's not collected at a national level, so we won't have your institutional data on that. Just some observations. Some of these things we shared with you last year, when we look back over time, we can go back to a period which our penetration rate was something like 12-13%. But the population in Central Oregon grew far exponentially larger than what the population at COCC did. But one of the things we did this last year since we showed it to you the first time, is we did add in students who are 15 years and older. As you heard from Sean's presentation, we have a huge number of students who are going through our youth camps, right? Or we should make sure to give ourselves credit for that. We also looked at tri-county education attainment rates to see if that was a factor that might be influencing some of our data. And what we found is that the surprising number of pockets where students already had not only their associate's degree, but their bachelor's degree as well. So for students who might go to us for a traditional education experience, may not need that, and instead may lean into the community ed piece, although this does include community ed. And we're also still looking at how we can capture the populations that are in our service region that are part of Wasco and Klamath counties. But it's a small population to carve out of what we normally get in countywide data. And so we're working through that. Hopefully, we'll be able to make some progress on that. Questions or thoughts on that? Michael?
This is a bar chart representing the cost for a student in district in tuition and fees for 12 credits per term for 3 terms, so basically a year. And you can see that Central Oregon is the third least expensive community college. And our goal is to be in the lowest 25% compared to other Oregon community colleges. So we hit our goal. And the observation is we did. Emery.
All right. We need one simple indicator.
There we go.
Ask a question about that goal. It's an interesting goal and it's a little bit different and there are things that could really be out of our control with this goal. So I wonder in the event that we are creeping out of the lower 25% and like the decision making that would come into that. Just kind of curious what that scenario might look like.
I would add, I think in a lot of these indicators, there's things outside of our control.
Yeah.
Penetration rate, transfer, graduation, retention rates, like when the economy is low and our enrollment's through the roof. Our graduation rates go up because of a lot more students engaged in it. So and what's out of control for us in this one is what other institutions are gonna do.
Yeah, but to that's what makes it feel a little bit different, but.
So for fiscal year 26, all the data is not input into the spreadsheet yet for all community colleges. So we're right around 5th now. But it could change because there's 4 schools ahead of it. So we might still be in good shape.
Yeah.
And we made
Fifth most expensive right now?
pardon, no,
We're
5th
from the bottom.
least expensive. So we're right on the borderline of hitting the goal, but. You know, we increased technology fees $1.
Yeah.
We increased our overall tuition less than 3%, so it just depends what other people do.
All right, taking a look at underrepresented students as our indicator, another indicator in the access area. The groups mentioned at the bottom of the colorful graph are the 4 areas that HEC has identified as priority populations. So you'll see financial need, that in the table corresponds to low income, adult learners, BILAPOC, and CTE or workforce. So if you wanted to take the time to compare the percentages in the boxes with percentages at the tops of the graphs, you're welcome to do that. Your own time. I'm just going to walk you through a couple of things related to this. So we didn't actually meet our goals in 3 of the areas, low income, BILAPOC, or CTE workforce, but we did meet them in adult learners. So if you look at those bars and above adult learners, you'll say, interesting, but the bars are decreasing over time. Doesn't that look a little odd? Well, yes, but we are still actually meeting our goal because our goal for adult learners was 51%. Wait, am I on the right one? Yeah. So the other thing I want you to notice, not quite done there, is the trends in the other areas, financial need, BILAPOC, in particular, they're still trending upward. So we're feeling good that even though we haven't met the goals in those areas, we are looking like those numbers are increasing, which is a good thing. And then in the CTE area, Deans and I talked about this a little bit. We're not quite certain why those numbers have dropped. But we are hopeful that as we're adding programs, such as exploring dental hygiene, adding programs in Madras, that is going to represent an uptick for us in the future. The other thing about CTE programs that we were talking about among the deans and I is many of them have caps. And so the numbers of students in those programs are going to be low because you can only take so many students in a particular program. So that's another thing that's probably affecting data there. Okay. Let's move on to some observations for underrepresented students. We don't yet have data available from HEC to provide comparisons there. But when we want to have, let's see, better find our notes. Oh, so what we did was we pulled data using our own definitions on this, and then once we get the peer institution data, we'll be able to confirm whether our definitions and their definitions are aligning well. But in the meantime, we want to track this internally to see how our progress is. So unduplicated headcount amongst those groups at 24, 51, 20, and 48%, which corresponds to what you saw on the previous slide. And I just want to give the caveat here is we hope we get information from HEC, and we also hope we got it back in January.
So, at some point, we may just remove that as your institution piece if they're not able to respond to us in a reasonable timeframe.
Okay, also providing access to our students, online courses and programs, which as you know, is one of our strategic plan action projects as well. I wanted to remind you, and you'll notice this at the table at the bottom, in those four sub indicators that we've chosen, head count, FTE, courses and course sections, we've provided ranges as opposed to specific numbers or targets. And that's because we studied the offerings that we had over time. And there's a natural ebb and flow in the number of students who want to take online and the number of programs enroll with those students. And so we set the ranges to represent what we know naturally happens, but they are also set to be increasing over time. Okay, we're at the upper end of the ranges in each of these areas, so that's good. Our indicators are looking positive and that. And in general, over the last years, we have an upward trend. Most of those upward or equal. Okay, we are not comparing ourselves against other institutions on this because we're sort of measuring against where we started. And so that's something to note. We have dropped from the data any pandemic year references. That was definitely an artificial elevation of online offerings. So what is interesting is that if we track from before the pandemic and after the pandemic, we are actually slightly above where we would have been if we were on a national project. So a little bit ahead on that. And we're really anticipating that our strategic scheduling project will move us forward in our ability to advertise these programs. Yes.
Do you have a sense, and I apologize, I didn't think this the first time I reviewed these materials, but do you have a sense of how many before COVID, how many courses we offered on average in a given year online?
I'm gonna say about 10% of our courses were online before COVID.
So how would that compare to like 231 now?
So if we do about 800 courses in a term, so that's 80 to 231, so it's a pretty good jump.
That's what's, I mean, that's what's not reflected here.
Yes.
I still think
Sure.
that's one, I still think that's one of the most amazing things that this college did, and I think Lori and the SLT gets a ton, as well as a lot of other people, gets a ton of credit for that, because I don't think
Toss it out to that.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
I don't think you can, I don't think we can overstate how amazing it was, and I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that it forced us to move 10 years ahead in online education. In basically, 6 months to a year. So when you look at 80 to 230, that's pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, I want to reiterate what Anthony said. We had about 2 weeks, our faculty had about 2 weeks. And they just put their heads down and did this. And that didn't happen everywhere, I'm gonna tell you. And I was so impressed. Put their heads down, we gotta get this done for students. It was amazing, and we should not take that for granted.
I got to see a couple of online classes taught by a couple of our faculty members, because of my nieces, and there's some pretty awesome stuff. I mean, like engaging things, it's not just like, here's the material, look at it.
Good to hear. I'll just say one last thing on this online courses and programs. We recently assigned a project manager to work our way through this, and so we're hopeful that that will help move us further along for this. The formidable Laura Bomi is taking that up. Oh, she wanted to mention it.
So I was already done,
Okay, then,
she's already done.
all right.
Community engagement, you guys just heard this one recently, so this might be a little more fresh in your minds again, so. It's a little bit of a different way to think about in-district penetration rate. We do college sponsored events, participation in community-based workforce and educational partners. Alicia, you still have to click her. Thank you. I know you're multitasking over there. It's great, it's great. So again, you can see the number of events we've done in the last 4 years since 2021. Again, that's a bit of an asterisk here. Don't need to go into that. We have some stretch goals here, but they don't meet. You can see what we did in 23-24. I know it sounds a little bit like a broken record. We just talked about this a couple months ago, but the appetite to have the college be a part of events or the college to put on events coming out of COVID was far greater than we expected. And they're well attended and they do great things. So You know, we have thousands upon thousands of folks in our district who attend our events or are part of our events, whether they want to put on or come to us. So it's again, it's just a really different way of measuring, I think, district penetration. And I think it's really important. So we don't expect to blow it out of the water every year like that. So again, the goals are still growth, but they're, I think, more meaningful.
Amen. Do you make
Sustainable. Well, I mean, it's staff time, energy, campus services time, energy, you know, facilities time, it really is. So we have to be really mindful of that, just because just because if you build it, they will come, right? And that we members really want to take advantage of our events. That's fine, thank you. So this is one we track on our own. When we went to the advancement model, which is the best practice in higher ed, in 2019, we were trying to really figure out all the things that the college sponsored to measure our impact across the region in really a different way. And this is measured a little more nationally. We don't have IPED data on it, but I have counterparts in other parts of the country that do try to talk about the number of things they put on or the colleges partners with them. So you can see, I think 129 in a calendar year is pretty impressive. So, and again, these span all 4 campuses. We collect that information from all 4 campuses. Happy to take any questions. Yeah, Aaron.
I'm a bit of a broken record
Yeah.
on these, and just thinking about whether we're serving all of our zones.
Yes.
With our events,
Of
and
course.
I don't think we've had any events in South County or Plymouth, and always curious what we might consider or how to engage that.
That's a great question, and I think, you know, the one great area where we really show up is SLED. And Lori was one of the speakers this year at the Center for Define Economic. No, it's great, because again, I think, you know, the work Cindy's doing in South County, what happens then is it's a little bit of, hey, you know, we're of course members of EDCO and serves that area, we're a member of the Southern Pine Chamber. So we get requests to sponsor events, or be a part of events where we are. We're sponsoring Prideville, right? We're sponsoring Balloons Over Bend. So where we have that presence, more of those things come in. I love the opportunity to have folks that goes and say, hey, we'd love you to be a part of Lapine, this or that, or other events. So I, you know, really you should reach out to me directly about that, but I think there are some things we're doing to build more meaningful relationships and, but I love that, yeah. And I wish we could do more of that, because again, we are limited to staff and it is, you know, a lot of that is Ben centric, it just is. But I love it when we do things.
Those collaborations, right? Yeah,
They're a lot
that's
easier,
nice.
they're a lot easier. Yeah, it is a good question, Aaron, I appreciate it.
Well, great answers, that.
You're, you know, from 23 to 24, you've jumped 50 events. Is there a problem of saying no?
You asked us a year ago, I love it. We're working on that. We like to say yes, that's the problem. I like to say yes, but what we've done is we've hired it, we actually transitioned a position to the campus events coordinator. That Jennifer Peters, who many of you know, filled wonderfully for 2 years. She retired in March. We hired an awesome new coordinator, Heather Bryant. She works out of our Warrington campus. So the fees that we're generating, the revenue from these rentals, a lot of the times that we do in the community, pay for that position, and then she's actually able to help coordinate these events. So we've invested in staff, a little bit of pays for itself. That's not all of those events. There are many things, these are nonviolence foundation events that don't have that, but we've also decided to be a partner in hosting high desert VSD board meetings, at Cascades Academy board meetings, and those sorts of things. So that position is there to support all of our events, large and small, and it's been a revenue generator.
Well, that's great. It'd be great to have you do 300.
Yeah.
Get to a point where- We'll get to a point where, you know, what is that right ratio of staff or manpower per hour?
You're right, and that's why the goal is lower. I don't want to hit 129. It put too much stress on campus services, on custodians, on IT folks, you know, Patrick's here tonight. It takes a lot of resources to do that. So at the same time, we want to show up in our communities and do those things and be a meaningful partner. So it's a balance, I think, for sure.
Just be damn good at what you do.
I can give an example, in my building with Lily Hall, there's times, facilities is setting up seven or eight different events in one given week.
Yes.
So something different in the morning, something in the evening, something different the next day, and that's, there's just so much capacity to do that level. Now, if we can hire 5 more people, it would be a different story, but, those aren't necessarily revenue events either.
Yes, yeah, thank you. Good point.
We are trying.
Okay, again, we recently had this conversation and pointed out a couple misses that were not, they weren't being measured correctly, so we've updated that. So these are our workforce and education partners. Again, I would suggest that in the new strategic plan coming, 2 short years, we always look at the list and see who this is, but for this strategic plan, these are ones that gave us a good indicator that we were showing up and being represented, and vice versa with our workforce and education partners. You see the groups listed there. I don't need to read them all. And of the 23-24 data, 94%, we really only have one organization where we didn't have a full MOU, a board member on that group, and we also still have great relations and do a lot of things with them. So I think this is really great. Again, you're gonna see this is kind of a unique indicator to the college now slide. So it's one of those that we just think is really important to measure, again, especially when we have an advancement model, where we're looking at all these things we do. And remind you, this does not count all of the advisory work that our faculty or staff serve on for other organizations. This is just these partners that we've identified. When we counted this in the last strategic plan, just trying to get a sense of how many workforce and education partners either had folks in our space or us in their space, it just hundreds, and it was just too much to manage. So now this is a great snapshot, but it really understates even the value of all of our faculty and staff out in the communities, and then the partnerships that we got with them.
Right, our workforce development goal, we defined as CSSC developing and aligning educational opportunities with regional workforce needs and industry standards. We have two indicators in this area. The first being headcount and completion among workforce students. The four sub-indicators that we have are the credit and non-credit headcount, and then the CTE and non-credit completions. You'll notice in the headcount bar charts, we've got 4 years of data. We get pretty good information on headcount, even at this point in the term. On completions, we won't have that data until the spring term is complete. So that's why we're missing a bar in those last 2 charts there. But pleased to say that we've actually met our goal in terms of credit headcount. So that one is successful. And we have not met in terms of non-credit headcount. I'm going to talk in a little bit more about definitions and how we're defining non-credit in workforce areas. But I think that's a complication to how we're looking at these things. And we're doing some good work on it, which I'm going to explain in just a minute. Let's see, we can look at the next slide. We have identified peer institutions, and again, waiting on some data from our partners at the state. So once we get that, we'll be able to make a better sense of how we're lining up against our working peers, if we get that. I'm more optimistic apparently than you are. Okay, I'm going with it. Okay. But in general, we've got growth rate ranges from anywhere from 1 to 10% since 21, the year 5 of 2022. And a reminder too, that when we look at demographic data, which I don't have in these slides, it's only available for credit students. We've begun to talk about how and when can we gather that information for non-credit students, but we don't have a system in place at this point.
And part of the rationale for that is, you can imagine if you take a community education course, you want the basic bare bones information you need to sign up. And so to ask a lot of the other data, we have resistance to that in years past.
Okay, then we're also looking at new courses and programs in workforce. And you'll notice an interesting anomaly there, the yellow band of the 23-24 range. Here's where I'm going to talk a little bit about the kind of data, the definitions that we used. When we set these up, we were using baseline data that was built on actuals for a particular year, and some anticipation of what we knew would be coming around through programs and courses through the curriculum process. That's in the credit side. We don't have that same process for no non-credit. But what we did was again, looking at what are the actuals that we have here. We actually had 53 new non-credit courses offered. Well, I looked at those titles the other day. And as I'm comparing the list of titles that make up those 53 and the work that I know our work group is doing right now in terms of defining those, I think that number is going to change as we refine our definitions a bit. I mentioned this, I think, in the last presentation I did. That a lot or a little? A lot. Good question. I don't know. I mean, I think it's gonna shrink, because I would say there were a number of courses on there that, given the conversations we've had since then, probably are gonna drop off the list. Yeah.
All right.
So-
Do you think that will potentially influence the targets Would the
I
targets
don't think
change
so.
at all?
You'll notice that our targets are really more in line
Yeah.
with all of the other
Yeah.
numbers, that 53 is a true outlier.
Yeah,
So I think it's gonna come more in line with what we're seeing here.
yeah.
And I look forward to bringing that to you as soon as we have it. Cindy, is the next meeting on that in a couple weeks, or June or early July? And I think they're anticipating wrapping that up at that point. You can go to the next slide. All right, we don't have peer institution data available on that. I mentioned that we're redefining refining our definitions. We did set fairly modest growth goals because we were bringing on those new tools that we shared with you a couple of meetings ago with John Graham, and I talked about the LightCast Analyst tool, which we've been using for about a year now. But even more important is the program demand gap analysis, which we are working our way through now. We have a draft, we're refining that a little bit with our partnership LightCast to improve that. So the strategic plan action team will provide baseline data that we need to inform future directions based on what we're learning in that PGA report. So we're excited to hear more about that. Let's see. If I have any other notes, I'll share with you. No, I think I've covered everything that I wanted to cover in that. So questions on any workforce? Things at the moment? Really quickly. Oh, I think
I'm so sorry, just the non-credit headcount that's gone down.
Yes.
First, it's down because we are defining it to that. And because something else.
Well, I don't think it's gone down because we're defining it differently. I think we're still figuring out the definition, so I think that may change a little bit.
Are we worried about that?
Not actually. We've got just sitting in with our non-credit Center for Business Industry Development, looking at their strategic plan for moving forward, and there's several elements in there that I anticipate are.
Our next section is college sustainability, which we measure with the indicators of greenhouse gas emissions related to the president's climate leadership commitment, employee turnover rate, employee awards recognitions and collaborations, and professional development. So the first one is the president's climate leadership commitment. And actually, we had huge drop in scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 emissions. And the goals are labeled at the bottom there, about 3.4% decline, right? This is for 22 and 23 though, but we were down 19.7, scope 1, scope 2, 15.6, and scope 3, 31.7. The scopes are defined in there, so that's like internal thing, vehicles, buildings, boilers, HVAC. Scope 2 is emissions purchase, and scope 3 is really outside of our control, so, you know, we can choose who we buy from. So the observations on the next slide. We don't have peer institution data. We're still updating 2024 information. But some of the reasons that they drop dramatically is if you have an HVAC unit break, and you don't use it for a while. That's one of the reasons we had savings for here. But we upgraded boiler, I swear to God. The improved resource mix by Pacific Power had a big impact. And then we have a program where we monitor all of our usage and we can compare it year to year. And we can actually turn off building if we want to. But one thing we do with Pacific Power is that they have a program where they can call us up and say, energy usage is really high in bed right now. Can you shut down parts of your campus? So our campus services can actually turn things off to save power, and they pay us for that. So it's kind of a cool program. So I think the next one is Anne Marie. Where am I on?
Laura's gonna join us over Zoom, assuming she can hear us still.
Yeah, I can hear you. Am I loud enough?
I think so, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't want to be too loud. Okay, so this indicator is employee
Laura,
turnover. Go ahead.
No, you're not.
I think that was a volume on our end.
Okay, can you hear me?
It was
Yes.
just- When you were first talking, we could hear you really well. So maybe.
Okay.
Just a smidgen.
All right, well, let me know if you can hear me.
We got you.
Okay, I'll continue, sorry. All right, this indicator is for employee turnover, and you will see down at the bottom the target. We've had a number of years where we've been really quite steady. The year of 21, 22, as indicated by COVID and other things, was very high for our employee turnover, but the anticipated targets have been met, and right now we are at 7% for 22, or excuse me, 24 and 25. If you want to move on to the next slide.
Workout over there, Alicia.
I know, it's technology is not our friend tonight, but. There we go.
The employee turnover, we do not have peer institution data available. I've been trying to gather it. We're fortunate that we have some very capable IE folks that have put a nice dashboard together, but other folks do a lot of manual effort. But observations, as noted, 21, 22 is COVID. COCC benefits continue to improve, and that COCC is a premier employer. We are doing very well in our retention of our employees in terms of numbers, and are well below those indicators. And the labor market changes are positively influencing our retention as well, because we are a stable employer with very good benefits. Thank you.
Or what pre-COVID averages for retention or turnover?
We were typically between 10 and 14%.
Okay, thanks.
Yes. And then this one is related to, you heard about this one in the fall, and as part of Great Colleges to Work For. We had one indicator that was specifically related to the employee awards recognitions, and professional development. And the group over this year reviewed the Great Colleges to Work For survey and expanded the questions for this indicator, because we felt like it was too narrow and did not exactly give a picture, the best picture of employee engagement. So as noted, the original question was specifically the one, our recognition, the second one in that table, our recognition and awards programs are meaningful to me. And we did gain traction, if you will, in the Great Colleges to Work For survey, but we are still not meeting that one. But the other ones that we added, regularly recognized for contributions, given the opportunity to develop skills at the institution and have access to training, are ones we are doing very well and showed very high marks, because for the most part, employees are seeing that within their departments and from their supervisors, they are getting recognition, and also they're having access to training and professional development opportunities. We also changed the targets for meeting this criteria. Before, as I noted, it was just the one question, but now we have meeting them as being 3 or more questions in a good standing, which we are currently in that state. If you could go to the next slide. We don't have peer institutions specifically, but within the Great Colleges to Work For survey, there are Carnegie institutions where we can measure ourselves against those, and that was reported in the fall. And we have consistently been improving our ratings, and we are looking through the action team at developing different awards and recognitions that are perhaps more at the department level and more meaningful to those folks at that level. And then the Great Colleges to Work For survey, which is where we get this data, was administered in 2024 and will be administered again in 2027. And I think that's it. Unless there's questions. And off to Alicia.
So we just threw a whole ton of stuff at you, and you're all kind of awake thinking. But if you ever want to play with it later, we do have a strategic planning dashboard, and this gives you the navigation to about COCC, college planning and assessment, strategic planning. But Lucas has got it queued up for us, and so what we want to do, it's actually really navigate for Lucas real quick, is scroll just so we can show you a little bit about how it works. So across the top, you can see our 5 goal areas and the number of indicators that are met. It's one of these I would caution you on. Community engagement, for example, says 0 of 2 indicators met. That's because we haven't measured either of those for this year yet.
End of June, yep.
So end of June. So when you see this in September, it'll be much more big dashboard. So anything that you see in gray, and you see that on some of these, we haven't quite measured yet. Then you can scroll down and see indicator by indicator what our status was in 23-24. And you can see we met most of them, but as you heard, we were pretty conservative on where we set our goals. So we increased our goals to stretch targets. And you can see in some of those areas, we've met those or haven't quite met those or haven't met them yet. Again, the grayer ones that we don't have end of year data on. If you ever want to dive more deeply into things, you can go for each of the goals and click on go to data. And it'll show you on an indicator by indicator level what the target is. That's this solid gray line. And you can hover this most recent year to see whether it has been met. What term is counting, what the numbers are, what our target was, that sort of thing. And you'll see that by scrolling down each and every indicator in that goal. And then over here, you can filter by different demographic pieces. And so when you saw us earlier talk about some of the demographic factors, we didn't give you demographic factors for every single one. But we gave you ones that were kind of some highlights, just to spare you some level of detail. But that gives you the ability to break down where it's possible to break down student data amongst those factors. And if you really want to geek out on the data, that giant 13-page document we sent you that have the target rationale and the definitions. If you ever go, how do they tell me we measured fall retention again? You can click on that button that says targets and rationale and give you all of that background detail. So depending on how much of a data wonk you are, it depends how deep you want to dive.
And huge kudos to our data team, right, who make all this happen.
That's
Small but mighty team.
Yeah.
Which is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really impressive.
So it's a great dashboard. I know a lot of us look at it on a regular basis. Some of our action teams use it really deeply, and we certainly use it within our organization too. Then the last piece we want to talk to you about is what we hope to see in a change regarding the reporting schedule when we bring this to you. It was a bit of a scramble last July to get that to you, especially when we want to have it to you a week or so ahead, which means graduation just wraps up when we turn around and do this. It was a huge scramble to get it to you. I was a little naive in that. I'll admit it, to get it to you for tonight, especially when you see the volume of indicators we haven't measured yet for this year. And so I think we can be we can give you more comprehensive data on all but one of our indicators if we present to you in September. And one indicator we wouldn't have for is that particular year's transfer data, because we don't know that till about mid-October. Okay? So it's all that one is always going to be a lot of our indicators are lagging indicators, but that's extra lagging. That'll be a year off at that cycle. But by doing so in September, it gives us not only time to do an analysis of the data and disaggregate it by different demographic factors, it allows us to add more detail about what our plans are going forward if we're not meeting a certain indicator. So to give you a much more comprehensive picture than this graph we have now. So if that is okay by all of you, we'd like to switch that to our annual report with a mini update this September, and then the 25-26 academic year next September, and do it on a September basis there on out, so you have a more comprehensive view.
Alicia, is there any objection to that?
Oh,
That schedule?
no.
Great.
Yeah.
I think we just wanted to ensure that there was regular cadence of getting updates, and so that's great that we can adjust it so it's not a scramble for you.
How much of this do we use to build our budgets?
So in the budget proposal process, the people proposing budgets have to tie their direct connection to their to the strategic plan and demonstrate how that's there. And then I know that's a factor in how some of those are rated. And they're closely linked, they're not 100% linked yet. But the other piece we do is we do set aside $100,000 a year for strategic plan activities that are directly tied to each of the action project teams. So our last strategic plan, we were pretty loose about how we made that connection between what we funded and the strategic plan. This year, we've been really, really tight. Folks have approached us to say, gosh, I think this activity really might help with this goal and has nothing to do with our prioritized action projects. So we really want to fund those prioritized action projects. We do believe when they're all holistically done, it really move the needle. So there is money in that sense.
What I was thinking is, In other words, you move this closer to your budget bill, like that way you've got the information fresh, gives the team longer to go up, and you can actually have fresh information. The bill section of your budget, off of the data, so it's. Good saying, I don't know, does the work move back further, it doesn't. I really don't care either way, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I don't think we're there yet, I think we're at a more.
Yeah, I don't want more stress. Yeah.
No, I think there, Jim, I think there are components of different areas of the college that do that a little bit more.
Okay.
And I think about even some of the grant examples Sean gave that came out of that, it's a parallel process, right, where you're looking for funding and it's tied to an initiative that already, you're meeting the initiative, or we couldn't approve it, but you don't have the funding yet. And so I've looked at that, a little bit of that model too, but I think the other thing is with the academic program review in the department, revising our department reviews. All of the work of every individual department of the campus and every academic unit has to show sort of an annual report of how their work is tied. So it's not necessarily done alongside the budget process, but it ensures all the time that we're tied directly, and funding follows those projects, whether it's staffing or whether it's initiatives. So it's maybe not as direct, but to me, they're really.
Okay.
We don't really do anything without consulting the strategic plan, at least in my division, and I know that's true.
Yeah, as good as you can.
Yeah.
I mean, and I agree that you guys have a pretty busy schedule already, so it's like we should there again, that you're already stacked up and ready, so I just asked.
Yeah, no, I think we do have work to do. We talked a little bit debriefing this year's budget
Yeah,
process.
yeah.
And one of those is how can we make that step, that tighter connection. So it's not hard to do with, it won't require staff more work to do it.
Okay, thank you.
We'll see about that.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll let you know about what you do.
Zach already said it, Bryn and Chris are institutional effectiveness team. Bryn is the director of institutional effectiveness and keeps us all moving on pace with strategic planning work. And it's just the workforce behind a lot of the action project teams and assessment work that we're doing to make sure we're making progress. And Chris is our lead for building all of our data dashboards, including the one I just showed you, and they just do absolutely phenomenal work.
And there's a third member of the team that maybe didn't make the slide, Sam does great work too.
Yeah, he does, but he's not all.
I know, that is a small division, so I just want to make sure.
So questions, comments, any other feedback or questions, concerns? They're saturated.
So I just got one, you know, when you asked about were the dead dates on the reporting schedule, we think we're good for it. I just say, you know, in terms of our retreats, it'd be good to be ready for those, so when you're figuring out schedules, just so we have what we need to have for retreats that week. It's a good idea.
I'll think about it more and I'll look around and lovely.
Yeah, that's. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Alicia and Anne Marie and Zach and Michael and
Laura.
and Laura. Thank you.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, appreciate that. That's a lot of time. The next item, I think we can dispatch pretty quickly. I think you know that a few of us were at the 75th anniversary event, and we were so impressed by the poem that was written for the event by the state of Oregon poet laureate, our own Ellen, I've known her for a while, so you can call her Ellie, but Ellen Waterston. And she wrote a beautiful poem, and so we asked that it be distributed, so it was in the packet, so everyone could see it and enjoy it. And then we go to renewal of faculty and staff appointments, and this is listed as Shauna Berry, but Laura Boney is here to answer any questions or entertain any comments or thoughts that anyone has on that. None? Okay, then we move to new business, and we also stay with Laura. But this is administrator salary adjustment, and we do have a resolution. So Laura, you wanna talk about that?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So for the 25-26 academic year, we are asking the board to review and approve a 3% increase to the base salaries and wages of eligible administrators and confidential employees that will go into effect July 1, 2025. So please consider.
Right. Anyone Pardon me, I'm sorry. Does anyone have any comments or questions for Laura?
No, but I'll do a resolution.
Okay, please, go ahead.
Be it resolved that the Board of Directors and Oregon Community College District approve the 3% increase in base salary / wages for eligible administrators and confidential employees.
I'll say.
All right, been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Noting none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed, please indicate by saying no or raising your hand. Noting none, motion carries unanimously. And now we are on, thank you, Laura, for that.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Now we have Anne Marie, full-time faculty rehire recommendations.
Have a list in your packet of faculty we are seeing that we hire for the coming year. They're divided into categories. The only probationary faculty category comes first. Inadvertently, we have replicated those names on the tenured list that would normally be called the tenured fact list. But so if you see a name carries twice, it's not two different people. It's just two people in one person in two places. We also have several full-time temporary faculty that we'd like to continue. And we have for you a list of retirements as well.
So this isn't just information for us with the president making the decisions. You want us to.
I believe, is there a resolution?
Yeah, we need to,
Yes,
we
yeah.
need to approve it.
So I'll just mention that these faculty go through evaluations, regular evaluations. They submit reports of their work. These are looked over by the deans and chairs and filed in their HR files. And I can confirm they are doing absolutely. I'll do that. Oh, wait, can I do the motion? Is that-
Yes, please, that would be
All
great.
right. Okay, so be it resolved that the Central Oregon Community College Board of Directors approve the rehires recommended to us.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve this resolution. Any further discussion? Noting none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed, please indicate by saying no or raising your hand. Noting none, motion carried unanimously. Thank you, Anne Marie. And Erica, you're up with the new board member orientation policy update, second reading, and this time, unlike first reading, we do need a motion.
Okay. So we made the changes recommended or that we talked about in the last meeting. So we added the board self-evaluation as something to go over, and then we referred to positions rather than names, which was good. So does anyone have any questions, comments, feedback for the second reading?
How about a motion?
Yeah, make a motion to.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the second reading of the new board member orientation policy update. Any discussion? I'll just add a little bit. Thank you very much to the committee for doing that.
Yeah.
You guys have put a lot together over the last year and we appreciate it. It's been needed to be done, so. Any further comments? Noting none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed, please indicate by saying no or raise. Noting none, motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Erica, and thank you again.
Yeah.
Spring retreat update, well, we had one, and I think it was good, and I think we've had a couple of individual conversations since then. The one thing that I'd like to see if we can get a little bit of consensus on is that you may recall that our facilitator had several recommendations for us on how we can update our policies to achieve some of the things that we want to achieve and to kind of deal with some of the maybe issues that have caused uncertainty over the last year. And so what I would like to suggest, if it's okay with folks, is that we send those to the policy review committee to come back with some recommendations to the board in a month or two. That's great. Is that okay? We've got consensus.
She's writing her recommendation.
She wrote them up, we just got them, we're about to send them out to the whole, I think Kyle's gonna send them out to the board.
Oh, that was my request, that the whole board could see it, not.
Oh, yeah.
Policy.
Yeah. Oh, no, everybody's gonna see it,
Okay.
but what I'm recommending is that actual policy changes.
Yes.
Be proposed by the policy. committee.
Right.
Yeah, no, I'm not, definitely not trying to gatekeep it, though. So, okay, that's great. I think that's the only thing, unless anybody else wants to say anything about the retreat. I really appreciate, especially, Alan, I don't want to point, but especially Alan and Aaron, for Morgan, both had to rearrange personal things to be there, so. Very appreciative for that, because it was important to have all of us there. And to Aaron and Merce and the committee, who was the rest of your committee? Jim and
It was me, Alan, and Joe.
Oh, Joe, okay, I'm sorry. Thank you three for doing that. I thought that the rubric that we used was better this year than it's been in past years, and everybody responded. We've had a couple of years in the past where we've had 6 responses instead of 7, so I would call that.
Just have it online. Made so much.
Oh, yeah.
Taking your review.
Big thanks to Kyle for getting that done for us too.
I don't have anything for the spring retreat, but I will take a moment to say, if you haven't replied to Kyle yet for dates coming up for our next retreat, please do so. Yeah, so we can get it on the calendar and schedule.
Okay, so then, Aaron Flanagan, the advocacy committee update.
Yes. So, just a few things that we've been tracking on, and then a couple of new things. One, we had asked that you all share any thoughts on any additional outreach priorities for Greg. And we didn't hear from anybody. I'm thinking that means we're in good shape. So Zach and Lori will probably tell you everything's great as is, and let's proceed. Then
I'm gonna drag him everywhere.
everywhere, yes. Then kind of speaking a bit to the students who joined us this evening, we have been discussing what outreach could look like for our board, especially kind of through recommendations from the committee. And we want to bring you some recommendations this fall, but we want Greg to get on board and have a chance to weigh in on those. But I do want to say thank you to Lori for already working with SLT to make some suggestions for how we could connect with students, how we can go to them, and other ways we can connect. So I think we'll look at those in our committee next time, and then those will become part of the bigger conversation we bring to you. We are also been tracking on state budget stuff. It is our hope that we will see the minimum ag budget, but probably nothing more than that.
I'm sure there will be, and I think that's it.
Do we know
anything beyond what came out of Grace and Needs? Michael, I don't think so. 6.9.
That's what, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah. So that's probably what it'll be,
Which is what we budgeted.
yeah, which is great. We haven't talked about this too much in our committee, but I do think, just thinking about our indicators tonight, and how, I think there might be some interesting advocacy questions for our board as we see the impact of federal policies on like our indicators. For instance, like if we really do start to see big changes there, what will our response be as community college leaders in terms of community education there around what those impacts are? And those are hard conversations, and I think maybe we'll be just kind of floating them and talking about them in the advocacy committee as things start to shake out. Anything else from anybody?
In regards to, just thinking about it, in regards to the tour, we'll be taking Greg on, meeting with different locations. I forgot all about that. Well, to respond to, I think that each community has some major movers and shakers in them. They're not the they're not the education, they're not the economic development people that we deal with see. But in Pineville, the managers, all communities have no shakers. Good example down here would be a representative, or it could have been Bill Smith. And we've got 3 people, 4 people, major employers. I was a conversation with them, but that would be an overwhelming project. But I think a secondary, that these people, the movers and shakers, are always behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Underground, looking at 50,000 foot level. There's a lot more information comes from those folks. And that is very valuable.
And I think we all know that, various communities.
Yes, well, Joe, I just am forwarding you that email with the book, if you just wanna look at it, make sure we got Jefferson County and New Jacksonville, I just send it this.
Well, we did divide them into sort of public officials and community leaders, donors. We tried to have some separation, so we were reaching different walks of life that we go, some alums are in there, so we tried to do that, really, it's not too late to get back.
Okay, but I'll get it, I mean, you look at Pine Board, sometimes 4 or 5 people I know on Pine Board, it's not on that list. There's 4 people in Matters, I believe, should be on that list. But it may not be important right now, but you guys should get it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the part of, I do, there are some people that I would hope that you would keep, Prineville, for instance, but I was trying to kind of identify the people that were most urgent, because that list is huge.
No,
And one of the,
that's what I'm saying. Go with what you have now, but I'll get to my list, or else, I'll later down. So there's a little more free time to be able to.
and Joe, one of the things I was gonna suggest, so this was something that we had cooking, when Lori first joined, until COVID hit and we couldn't start doing like big events. But it was like a year or 2 into her, term, because we wanted to give some time, but like, I'm willing to host like a small cocktail party or something at my house in Prineville for some of the folks here, so that we could do, a group at once. Cause as you know, in Prineville and in, Madras, the people that we're talking about, they all know each other.
Right.
So, if we could get, 8 or 10 or 12 people together at one time, we could kind of knock it all out in one. So.
I think events like that, whether it's community gatherings or in-home gatherings, are actually great, you're right, it's so much more efficient. And sometimes if there isn't a direct relationship or partnership, it could be a little more casual, we do that fundraising world, it's pretty well, so. I love that.
I'll have to let them know it isn't a fundraising act.
No, you can be a little bit more, you can just have, you can be more efficient, get more folks in.
Can it be at our college and have beverages?
Sure. We will be doing, there's a lot of rollout to introduce Greg to these communities, he's excited for that. We did that with this campus tour, as you remember, we were involved in the community, I think that's a big part of why he chose us, as the branch, the branch campuses, and then back where we knew I'm serious about that, so. It'll be fun, there's Matters events coming up, he'll be a presence on our branch campuses, I don't wanna speak for him, but I know that, he's still.
And board members are welcome to come to my house, but I can't have more than 2 where we have those public
Well,
meetings.
I did. I'm gonna say number 6. That's all.
Thank you, Erin. All right, we are now on board member activities. So let's start with Erin. I like to start in the middle and make y'all like wonder.
Okay, well, I've had not a whole lot, I've been pretty low key, so I had our retreat on May 31st, and we had an outreach committee meeting earlier on May 14th. That's really all that I have been to, sadly.
Okay.
And then just some conversations with board members about.
Sure. Jim, or do you want me to skip it for now?
Sure.
Erin, do you mind?
I don't mind. On May 16th, I attended the OCCA board meeting. On May 21st, I had a call with Mary Spelby, which a lot of us did to prepare for the retreat. On May 30th, I attended Lori's retirement party, and I had a call with OCCA DEI committee chair Lisa to talk about a project that I'll mention in a moment. On May 31st, I attended the board retreat. On June 3rd, I attended the OCCA DEI committee meeting. On June 4th, I had coffee with Jim. On June 8th, I had a call with Laura. I want to give just a couple of updates from the OCCA perspective. First, we talked about the Community College Support Fund increased. The state approved 854 million, the advocacy number was 920 million, so came in short on that. 329 million for the Oregon Opportunity Grant, short of the 450 million being advocated for that. At our board meeting, there was a lot of the annual budget was approved, a very positive review for the executive director. And we also approved an updated equity call to action. It was originally adopted in 2020, and it was time to take a closer look at that. I'm on the DEI committee, so I was able to participate in that process too, so it was nice for it then to be approved by the board. And the next project that the DEI committee is working on is, it's a very brief resource. It's tips and strategic guidance for board members to keep focus on DEI during these times. So stay tuned for that. Finally, just one note, at the OCCA meeting in November, they honor award winners Howard Cherry Awards, and everyone has an opportunity to nominate individuals who have positively contributed to community colleges in Oregon. So there is an advocate, an award, an administrator award, and a board member award. So if anyone comes to mind, if we may want to submit a nomination, we can do that. So, FYI. That's it from me.
Good way to give some recognition like we talked about.
Look at the past winner in the room,
Oh, who?
Dr. Moore.
Oh. She is the specific award she won, is the Cam Croix. She's a major community college leader in the state. Community College Champion Award, something of that nature, but it was all of the community college staff across the state, and Alicia won. You were the inaugural winner, I believe. Second, all right, I didn't get on it. But I want to say, people around the state know Alicia, and there was a lot of support for that nomination. It wasn't just me, it was definitely a broad range of folks supporting that honor for her.
Okay,
So the 75-year event, that is the last reporting, not this one, I can't remember. The 28th, I did the Maxwell Veterans Room event, the 30th, the Laura's reception, and the 31st retreat.
thank you. Joe?
So, May 21st, and then, roll call, Mary, our board retreat facilitator, and then, of course, our board retreat, on the 31st. That's it. That's all.
On May 22nd, a call with Mary Spillway, on the 21st, I think I went backwards, it's not in order, I just realized that. Met with Lori and Laura, on the 30th attended Lori's retirement party, on the 31st was at the board retreat. June 3rd, the OSU Cascades Advocacy and Advisory Board, I attended that. On the 4th, I attended the Nursing Advisory Board meeting, and the NCLEX pass rates went from 87% to last year they were 100%. That's amazing. So, just wanted to call that out and to give like a little bit of celebration around that, to see numbers improve like that. On the 6th, had to check in with Lori, and then on the 10th of June, check in with Lori more.
Okay, the 27th, I attended one of the hosted fire education events at COCC, and really interesting. 28th, I attended the Veterans Open. 31st, we both did a retreat, and the 4th, I'm in Barron.
Okay, so was that the 23rd that we had you and Lori and I?
I wrote down 21st,
Okay.
but then I put it not in order.
Either way, I was there. I had a couple calls with Mary Spilvey. I had a couple calls with Aaron. I attended Lori's retirement thing. I attended the retreat. I had a call with Aaron Footmarkin. I had another call with Erica and Lori on the 10th. I had a call with Lori on the 11th. That's today. And then I had a call today with Michael and with Pete Christoph, who's helping us with the Redmond property that we've been talking about. And then the coolest thing that I want to make sure that Zach knows about this, because this was a foundation thing. Last year, my husband and I bid on a 4-night stay in what was labeled a rustic cabin on San Juan Island. And there's no way I would have been able to buy it. Scott said, Laura, Scott loves nice hotels, so Scott told everybody, Laura drank too much wine at the COCC event, because that makes it far too easy to get that wine. And therefore she bought a rustic, 4 days at a rustic cabin. Okay, this place is right on the sound. You literally look out at these amazing, amazing views. Scott was on the deck one morning and he heard a sound, the spout. It was an orca breaching 50 yards from him, just playing and dancing around about 8 in the morning. So it was incredible. If they are so gracious as to donate again, I will provide photos and all sorts of flowery details.
All scholarships, thank you.
It was really, really awesome, and thank you to Tim and Jenny Green for who donated that. And that's all I have, so that brings us to the president's report. And I'll turn it over to Laura.
Super. There is, the most important event of the year is Saturday. And Alicia is sort of the convener, ringmaster of that shindig. So tell us a little about what we know about commencement.
Commencement's coming up. Fabulous team, through business and records, student affairs, a lot of volunteers from across the college pull it off. But we have 322 students out there this morning walking, always a few that straggle in the last minute. Hopefully it's not like the one that happened a couple years ago, because I could end, people come walking and he had two syllables last name, first of his last names at 14, or two last names and the first of his 14 syllables. So let's not have that happen again, but we are very excited for this year. The weather's supposed to be fantastic, the field is getting set up, it's always fun to see the field playing on Monday, stage go up Monday afternoon. 3,000 chairs go up to yesterday and today, and so between families and guests, we do expect about to be usually just slightly over 3,000 people, including many of you here, so thank you for your support.
And wear your sunscreen.
Fabulous day, wear your sunscreen. Yeah.
And I have one more thing to say, and that is thank you all so much for giving me the opportunity to do this job for the past 6 years. I am deeply grateful for your faith in me, and for your guidance and support. I think people don't know how much work board members do and how much they have to talk to me and, you know, talk me off the ledge and all that kind of stuff and provide good counsel. So just thank you. It's really been my pleasure and my honor, and I don't take that support for granted. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity and support.
So that dovetails perfectly into my agenda change item. I just want to, I want to take the opportunity to recognize on behalf of the whole board, to recognize you, Lori, and to express our appreciation and our recognition of all that you have done over the last 6 years. And I'm going to, don't worry, I'm not going to read the whole thing I said at her retirement, but I want to pull out a couple of little things. I remember that when we interviewed, Eric and I were both on the committee, and Lori was clearly one of our top choices during the first phase when we reviewed the written materials. And she was the last interview on the second day, and we were all exhausted. And at that point, you know, we kept really good notes so that we could go back and look, but you're really tired and you're trying to remember things and who said what, and anyway. We finished that interview and we looked at each other. We didn't say anything because we're very mindful that you don't want the board to try to hijack the whole committee, right? So, but we looked at each other and we both knew that we, like, you know, this was our next president in our minds, unless something catastrophic happened in the visit. to
And
campus.
luckily the committee and everybody else thought that was influencing it.
They did, they did.
All through the process.
And then when she came on campus, it was the same thing. It was pretty clear. You made our decision easy and you have proved us right, which I love, obviously. And so we want to thank you for that. And I want to take a minute to go through just some of the highlights of things that have been achieved, because one of the things that I often say about Lori as well, I have a lot about last year as I've been thinking about the transition that we're going through, is that she's really quick to own her own missteps. But she's really slow to tout her own accomplishments. She views her accomplishments as team accomplishments, and she's always ready to toss out the bouquets to other folks. But in my opinion, and from my vantage point, I think that these achievements wouldn't have happened without her extraordinary leadership. Sure, it wouldn't have happened without other people who came and brought it through, but we needed somebody at the top who supported and encouraged and coordinated, and I think that Lori has done that. So I want to just run through a few of these. We have workforce development as now a strategic plan goal. She has established a clear leadership structure for workforce development. She's led the creation of the, I hate this acronym, CBIPD, that houses all short-term and customized workforce training opportunities. Our Small Business Development Center now has strong community responsive programming. We created pre-apprenticeship programs in construction and manufacturing. We created in-demand programs like graphic design and illustration and community health worker and peer support specialist. We've begun development of a dental hygiene program. We've expanded the vet tech program to include annual enrollment. We'll be offering our first bachelor's program, the Bachelor's of Science in Nursing. We are revitalizing our manufacturing program through curricular updates and a facility renovation. We're offering automotive programming at Warm Springs. We're offering early childhood education, nursing, bless you, certified nursing assistant and medical assistant programming in Madras. And she signed the President's Climate Leadership Commitment, and we have a team working toward the goal of COCC becoming carbon neutral by 2050. Now, I would add to that list also some more less specific, but I think equally important. She upgraded a lot of our internal systems, successfully hired some terrific leaders and promoted some terrific leaders on the senior leadership team. And she's been an excellent communicator with the board. So Lori, I'm gonna repeat this one thing that I said. I hope that you find some experiences and activities in this next career that fill your soul, challenge your mind, and bring you joy. But as I said, remember, as I said before, retirement's like a long vacation in Vegas. The goal is to enjoy it, but not so much that you run out of money. So we would like to, as a board, to thank you very, very much for all that you've done. We very much appreciated you and all the things that you've done, and thank you, truly.
Thank all of you. This has been very lovely. Thank you, Lori. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to thank you for your faith in us too, because when you applied, you were selective of what colleges you were going to apply to. And we made the grade. We looked at it and said, we'll all apply here. And so that means something to us that we made the grade.
Well, it is true. I was not out there applying for every job. I had to be a good fit, and I know that in those couple of days of interviews, I felt really comfortable with you, and I was hoping that you'd feel the same. I remember Bruce Abernathy. I thought the dinner went well. I was particularly nervous about the dinner, and Bruce Abernathy showed me a picture of him in a cow suit snowboarding, and I thought, I think I'm doing okay. I think they like me.
Now you know Bruce showed that to everyone.
Yeah. Although, Lori, it's a testament to how much you impressed me, because you admitted at that dinner that you weren't really a wine drinker.
It was a bold move. I try to tell the truth. It's a fair town.
Yeah, you do indeed tell the truth, and yes, it is a fair town. And I still remember the video that I think Zach did, you and
It was all
Zach
Ron.
put together.
All Ron.
It was Ron, where you pumped your own gas. Or maybe you couldn't pump your own gas, you were surprised you couldn't pump your own gas. Were you feeling growler? Never mind.
I was amazed when I moved here that you could buy growlers of beer at gas stations. And you couldn't pump your own gas, and there are weed stores all over. Not in Michigan anymore.
Indeed, indeed. All right, dates, I think everybody can. Oh, sorry.
Yes. This week I received the email from.
I'm sorry, Jim.
Michael Krantz, because. I got up my game, I guess. Michael Krantz, sorry he couldn't be here tonight. Yeah, another assignment. He said, you were a very, very nice letter. I said, I have recently heard of your upcoming retirement from your position as president of COCC. I want to express my gratitude as well as my best wishes. You have been a valuable and dedicated member, not only at COCC, but also the city of Bend and our community, as well as and when it comes to issues of connecting to safety and security. During your time as presidents, you have made significant steps to help restore our relationship between the Benton Police Department, the school board, and COCC. Our department is incredibly grateful for your commitment, your dedication, and your positive impact on our community. Your willingness to go above and beyond has made a real difference and a significant impact to a long-lasting positive connection between COCC and the Benton Police Department. The Benton Police Department wishes you all the best in your retirement and hope you will enjoy and fulfill a new chapter.
Well, I will make sure that I, reach out, to him to thank him.
As a lot of you know, I was a chief of police from Orange Grove, and probably the lowest spot we've been in relationships. And she just took it head on. We just come in, we had a really Midwest honest conversation.
You may, I was speaking with them.
Yeah, I'm scary.
As the police chief, you know,
Yeah.
don't do anything wrong.
Yeah, it was just from that moment we left the office, it just was a 180 change. It just was. There was a whole different feel. There was trust restored after an hour meeting, and you just did amazing. Yes, good.
You're very kind, and I would say, and I always say to, Mike, when I talk to him, how much I valued his expertise and called on him a number of times, help me, I don't know what to do. And he was very gracious and supportive, and, I feel really lucky that that you were the chief when I got here and he carried on, after that, he's a great guy. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. I even have a note here. And yes, I'm sorry.
It's that's what I got.
But I'm really glad that you don't, that you don't think it's not a true violence, so thank you. Does anybody else have anything they want to add?
I guess the two things that I'll add is that, talking about partnerships in the community, I know that we have the strongest partnership we've had with OSU Cascades, we have the strongest partnership we've had with St. Charles in a very long time, even though they've always been a partner. And then another number of other community partners, and that is because of you, Lori, and the your willingness to reach out and to connect and to talk constantly with our partners, and then to open the door for your staff and faculty to do the work that needs to be done. So I feel like you've removed a lot of barriers. I also we have been committed to serving non-academic student needs, and you've seen programs grow around the campuses related to those, and so that has happened since you've been here. So I feel like those are two really important points to add to Laura's list of accomplishments.
Thank you.
Well, I had good memories of all the things that you've done, conferences and different things. I really appreciate your candor and also just being up front, straight there. Of course, most Midwest Flatlanders are like that anyway.
They are, Joe.
But my one memory that you weren't a part of, but when he came back after checking out Lori's days back in Michigan, he came back to 25 inches, 30 inches of snow, and we dig ourselves out of them. And I thought to myself, once we got there, well, I hope she's worth it, because this was not fun. But wish you well, and hopefully you stay here and not go back to the flatlands, but if you do, certainly understandable. But it's gonna be good, I'm bored.
Well, thank you, Joe, and as a fellow Flatlander, I know you have that background as well. I do intend to stay there for the foreseeable future and to spend a little time back in Michigan as well, but. For my own sanity in September and October, I'm gonna spend some time in Michigan, so I'm not here wondering. Shouldn't I be starting a new academic year? Maybe I should go bother Greg. I would never do that, but I think for my sanity, I'll get out of town. I'm looking forward to being in Central Oregon and enjoying some things that when you're working, you can't enjoy.
I'm gonna drop a cat off at your house someday.
The cat comes in November.
Okay.
There'll be a cat.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, well, we're gonna miss you. This July meeting's gonna have a whole new face.
And great.
It will be great. It will be great. And I think everybody can read their own, dates, but I will just note that Dr. Pereira does start on July 1st, and he is going to have the fun of ending his day that day with the real estate committee.
Yay.
Okay, I think that's all. We will reconvene in July because I think there is an expectation, but not a commitment, that Erica will be our next chair, assuming that we do what we've typically done. I imagine that she'll probably be reaching out to folks about the committee assignments in the near future. So we can hopefully get those started sooner than I did last year, so.
Yeah, I think we'll wait till, just to ensure that if that is the succession, that September is when we did them last year, and I think that worked pretty well, because then we can have conversations over August.
Okay, well, so like, I wanna keep doing the policy stuff this summer, so should I just keep doing it regardless?
Yeah, I think the current policy committee just continues on, and then in September, that's.
Okay, so we can just keep our current committee assignments until September?
Until they change.
Until they change.
There we go, very good, very good.
Never mind, okay.
Uh-huh.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, well, is there anything else that's come for the board?
A reminder, if you haven't done the doodle poll in regards to the meeting with Greg, retreat. It's either gonna be in August or something.
That's right, having a meeting with him when he arrives, in the one-on-ones if we want to, right? But we need a retreat date, so respond to the doodle poll.
Yes, please respond.
Okay, all right. Thank you, everybody, for approving. Oh, sorry, did you have a question?
I was just gonna say, so the first time that we sort of officially see Greg would be at the board meeting? Yes. Or will there be something different for board members, do you think? It'll be at the board meeting.
It'll be at the board meeting, probably at the dinner. Yeah, it's unfortunately, there's just not a lot at the dinner before.
Yes.
For the, unfortunately.
We're gonna do a little campus welcome on July 1 for him, like we've done in the past, so we kind of let the board know about.
Yeah, that'd be
Keep it
great.
very informal, like
That would be
cheer him into the way, all right, we'll let you know.
Thank you, Scott, that would be great.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you, Susie. Thank you, Susie, for hosting us today. Thank you, everybody, for approving, and please share with your friends and neighbors that the road goes both ways here. And enjoy your drive home. I will be at home while you're doing that, having a glass of wine. So we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Me too.
Yeah.